Yo, we are live. We are live.
Hello, everyone. Hope the weather is treating you kindly. I've got a fan blowing there because fuck this heat. Plus, it's always moist.
We're the worst Winston Churchill.
Ah, there we go. There's my stream elements. Came up for my coach. Oh, there we go.
Nice.
If you have your volume down.
No viewers. Well, allegedly, my Facebook's up. Allegedly, your Twitch is up.
Kev's streaming the match. Well, he's reacting to the game.
So are active. Showing up. Active bit yet.
Rejoice. We have a Welsh techie wizard.
Beck's being forward.
Hello,
Welcome to my
Bex.
YouTube channel.
Yay!
Thank you. And to Katie, Jim is not my friend anymore. Specs is a better friend to me because he's chosen, Jim has chosen your channel over mine, whereas Specs is on my channel. So Specs is my friend, not yours, Katie.
That doesn't really matter. They're both my mods.
And I don't have any mods. Delighted to see you is here. We got 4 in already. 3-1. Katie, Andy, 3-1. I don't have a cigarette. Yeah. So apologies a bit late tonight. We've got a mad street, a really dense subject to go through. Paul Fletcher, hello, welcome. Welcome to the first one on Twitch tonight, looks like. Oh, 3-2, Katie Andy. The gap's narrowing here. It absolutely is a competition. I've been hearing about the World Cup all week. I don't really care about football. So, like, this is you all doing penance.
Hello, Scrippy. I have downloaded those books now. They are on the laptop. Thank you.
Scrippy, hello. Delighted you could join me. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind because, we'll even get into that in a bit. I'm just going to nip out and find a cigarette lighter and you deal with it, Katie. You deal with it.
Okay, no problem. Hello, a couple of Burks. I'm thinking that's a singular Burke, I'm assuming. Good evening. I hope it's not too bad in North Wales. Rejoice, this one might get a bit tasty, everyone. Just warning you. And I will get to rant about the last, about like actually being in charge of the government Liberal Party. The European coalitions later, like throughout the decades, until the no. Liberals have went through many iterations in the UK. Oddly enough.
I was just going to say, Katie, this should be the 10 p.m. call out for meds. There will be another one about 10 or 15 minutes. If you've got 10 p.m. meds to take, you should have them taken now or take them now, unless you're not in the UK, because time zones.
We could go the full Kev and say there is no other time zone. You're either in this time zone or you're in a wrong one.
Choose. You're either with our time zone or you're against our time zone.
Mm.
Couple of perks. Thank you.
Oh,
Delighted you could join us.
I assumed it was you.
Oh my
Mm.
God, that's beautiful, Scribby. Early evening, 3 hedgehogs come into my flat and help themselves to dreamies and cat food. I guess dreamies is another type of cat food, like cat snacks. Jackal and Jack H, hello and welcome. La la la. Tonight we're going to be talking about war. What is it good for? Fuck all, really.
Fucking. And that's sticking at my throat. Stupid big goblin.
Yeah, we're talking about the shell crisis, which was we were meant to do last week, but then Andy fell asleep. And it's just such an insanely dense topic that the sort of hour I had spare tonight to refresh myself, I realized it's so dense that we couldn't do it unless I made like a whole page of bullet points. So we hope we can guide you through some of that. But yeah, we'll take our usual sort of 20-minute kind of farting about. I've been chasing a particularly belligerent gerbil today.
Excuse me?
And
Excellent.
it got me quite upset. And then I accidentally abandoned another gerbil in the pen for 2 hours with water. And to be fair, their tank is quite small, but it did upset me quite considerably. So yeah, that was what it was. She got extra seeds, of course. While one little gerbil got none. Well, none, no extras.
Thank you. A singular burp. Yes, if you have meds to take them. I have to take my meds because one of them is a blood thinner and we don't want blood clots again. Because in hospital for 13 days, I got injections straight into my fucking stomach. Twice a day. I don't want to have to go through that. It's bad enough getting them into my spine every 6 years. I don't want them going straight into my stomach. No. The other one's pregabalin for my nerve issues, from like the physical nerves misfiring. And it kind of damps down the pain. That's what that one's for. The other one you see on the arm is HRT, because need it.
Burks is right. All gerbils are belligerent, to be fair. Yeah.
Are they?
I put up a ticker tape and our names disappeared, which is quite odd. Like, how will people know who's, like, am I Katie or you Andree? That's just confusion.
That looked like an Andrew, I'm not sure. Oddly enough, no Andrews on either side of my family. Really weird.
Well, here comes Andy Burnham and Andy or Andrews and you Hitler.
Oh, God.
Like, junior, very, very junior. Yeah. Sorry, that was a bit out of... yeah, that was a particularly inappropriate remark, unless you laughed, in which case it's fine. I'm sorry about that.
I guess.
Yeah, how's your day been, Katie?
Not too bad, actually. Yeah, doing research for later streams. Like I was saying to Scribby, I've downloaded material he has given me. It will take me a while to get that one all planned and laid out to do on stream because it's about Malthus.
Malthus?
Malthus. You don't know who Malthus is? Watch this space. No. He's a mathematician in Plymouth. Early mathematician. And the reason he done that is forever ringing in my head, Kev saying Malthusian scumfucks, basically the denial of the poor's fucking food and birthing rights and shit like that, because they'll outbreed us all and there'll be anarchy and all that nonsense. That's a short version.
Back 15 years ago, I used to listen to Alex Jones, and he would say Malthusian scumfucks a lot as well. But Kevin's got a much lovelier accent.
He doesn't do.
I
have completely forgot that he said that. Fucking hell.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Jones could be right 3 times a day back then.
Yeah.
He was still a snake oil salesman, but
yeah,
you know,
and his little is pliant little British person as well. Paul Joseph Watson, everyone. There's another one you have to watch out for.
Little incel, yeah. But I mean, when I was around the political circuit back then, like yeah, I was doing activism work with Amnesty International and People and Planet and Greenpeace. But I was also listening to Alex Jones and getting a lot of my news from there, and that was because he tended to collate a lot of political press. And back then, it seemed to me he was the only one putting an absolute zero bullshit policy in how he responded to them, except for his own maximum bullshit policy infused in, and like some dots that might be drawn as wall would be connected to dots like on the other side of the planet. It was a bit caca even back then. You know, the oddest thing I remember from that period of Alex Jones is listening to him get Noam Chomsky on a show for like a 40, yeah, for real. There's bound to be a copy of this out there, because
more than likely
he really encouraged his audience to share his work. He had deep archives. He wanted the stuff given away for free if it would get people's eyes on it. But 45 minutes to an hour, Chomsky, and it actually, for the most part, it went like fairly normal. They covered a range of subjects. They found consensus on a lot of stuff. And then in the last 10 minutes, it went fucking caca. And weird as this is for you to swallow, Alex Jones was actually in the right and Chomsky was in the wrong. Chomsky insisted that the London Metropolitan Police weren't armed, and Alex Jones insisted they were. And they got quite heated, both over, well, Jones more like,
yeah,
and parted on bad terms. Oh. There you go.
Yeah, you would have thought that his, well, I don't know if this it sounds like this was before his pliant little researcher. Yeah, our police unarmed, our standard police that you see about the police.
I think this was
squad.
I think it's about 2001, 2002.
Oh, yeah, this is well before Paul turned up in the scene, yeah.
You know, post 9/11, that's when Jones's site really started to take off. And it's kind of a peak period of 2001 to 2008. So around all that. I'm throwing around concepts that I'd never heard before, like problem, reaction, solution, false flags, um, government-sponsored terrorism, false left-right paradigm.
Oh, excuse me. Hello,
And then I started imagining all atrocities were carried. Well, many atrocities were carried out by actors who didn't seem to have their equity cards. Strangely enough, which seems to be a requirement for for being an actor on film, which is what I've learned. Yeah.
They all have to have their equity card, don't they?
Well, Alex Jones, where is that trail of equity cards? The smoking equity cards. Show us, Alex.
I like that.
He popped up on my feed again this week. Well, not him specifically, but somebody talking about his reaction to the Onion's latest fun.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Scribby says the Noam Chomsky and Michel Foucault debate is a thing. Okay, I would be interested in checking that out.
Well, you have to remember how old Noam Chomsky is. He'll have debated lots of people.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Jacqueline. It's this. I have a nasty habit of swallowing it sometimes because I can't swallow properly. Yeah.
You wouldn't swallow a cigarette. You wouldn't swallow a car.
I know I've got a bit of a big mouth, but I think that might be a bit too much for me. And I can't get comfortable for some strange reason. That's better.
Get comfortable. We've got a long ride ahead of us. If you need to use the toilet, use it now. Vapes. When I vape, I often get a bit of a choking fit as well. I find them quite hard to take in sometimes.
I don't have it.
Ooh.
Didn't swallow a cigar or something. Truthful snake.
Right. Didn't swallow a cigar or something. Right, Katie, look, this Restream's issue with showing up comments when you're I guess there's only so much Restream can do about it if we're split over viewers over 3 different channels at the moment.
Yeah.
I'd like everybody to be in the same loop as to chat. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do half the stream where the comments are on screen covering your face, and then half where they're covering mine.
Okay.
I wonder, can I tilt my camera around so there's a bit of the wall that well, just over my face. That'll do. Yeah, I'll take the first half because you took it last week. Okay. There we be projecting on my t-shirt. Okay.
The lovely Jacqueline says, look at the shite politicians have expected us to swallow over the years. Too true, Jacqueline. Too true. But we managed to call out most of their BS because the leftists perpetually Cassandra. Ooh. There we go.
There we go. That's nice and that's nice and big. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool beans. Right. I'll bring up a few docs of my own. Oh, and probably just give me a little minute to line up those notes we made on videos.
Rejoice, we have an orchestran in chat. World War One was a real shit show. Correct, my dear. Correct. Hello, darling.
Oh, lefty tech. Lefty tech.
Most of the issues that I have is caused by the leftist, not the tech. But I have a well techie wizard now, so. Oh, I like that snake emoji. That looks cool.
Right.
Excuse me.
Okay. We've got like a 6-minute bit of political setup into this. Or do we want to start with talking about giving an overview as kind of we understand it from where we're at?
Yeah, let's do that first. Yeah. So
let's
I've been going through that. Yeah. So the lovely materials, one tonight and one last week. Well, a couple of, can't remember when you gave it to me. Early last week. So 10 days ago, something like that. I went through all of that documentation, and I got the lay of the land about what was happening in cabinet and generally the where the shells intersect with the government and what they were doing. So yeah, that was fun. So basically the government at the time were struggling to they weren't making enough shells essentially. And the political machinations happening back home here in the UK. So yeah, that was delightful and about all that stuff. I would say never trust a Liberal, never just laugh at that government, seriously. And I will forever, my eyes have now been opened to David Lloyd George and what he was actually like, dear God. And what Lord Kitchener was like and everything as well, Christ almighty. Kitchener of Khartoum got called for reasons. So yes, learning about all that stuff was enlightening, but holy fuck. The shorter document you gave me tonight, I love those bullet points. They were easier to understand.
Yeah.
I liked your theory that what was happening with that in relation to them. Like, so this was still when the Tsar was in charge and trying to procure explosive shells from us, from the British government. Quite a good, quite a good wee tangent that we could go on that one.
I'm going to try and pull it out a bit, or I don't know what hand motions I'm supposed to make, but essentially.
Thank you, Orchestra. It was Asquith and Lloyd George, correct.
Sorry,
Oh,
some
God.
mic issues.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask with Liberal in charge of Britain during the war, and pretty much straight away, well, in hindsight, there was a massive shortage of bullets. And what we're talking about is not your regular gun bullets, like which I think is referred to as shrapnel, but actually explosive bullets, bigger explosive shells, like come out of cannons and rifles and stuff. And this kind of blew up, and it was happening in Britain, which was, I mean, Britain was still the empire, so the French were dependent on Britain, the Canadians, the Russians, really, and the Russians suffered. That Britain suffered because of Britain, which were the shell crisis and the financial crash that followed because of the need to recover from the shell crisis. It exploded repairs, led to a few sorry, I'll try again. The lack of explosive shells had their own sort of consequences, and this all blew back on the press. High-ranking folks in the military leaked it to the press. This blew back on the government, forced the Liberal Party into coalition, and then Lloyd George worked with a coalition partner, Bonar Law of the Tories, and they forced out Asquith to put Lloyd George in place as a new Prime Minister. So there's a lot of political media shenanigans, which will probably I'd probably focus a bit more on rather than the stuff at the battles themselves, except where the battles are like very important in the whole story. And it's one because there were huge losses of life because of the shortage of explosive shrapnel, which makes no freaking sense, does it? Because I mean, the Germans were also undergoing their same shortage. More, it would be bigger. So, I wonder if misrepresented this. It's a minefield, excuse the expression. Katie's found us a few kind of supplies. We're mostly going to be quoting from eBay local collection. Shut up. We're mostly going to be quoting from a talk given by historian Dr. Spencer Jones at the Western Front Association Conference, Understanding of the Great War, 1914 to 1918. And we're going to play, I'm going to line up a clip from that now. It's 6 minutes and should serve as a bit of a better introduction than what we've given. And Katie and chat, at any point you'd like to unpack stuff, just give a shout out and we'll as best we can. So let's see, 4 minutes to 10 minutes.
Down to the Swiss border. This was an unprecedented development. It was not a development that the British Army had considered likely or had even considered possible, dare I say. For the first, warfare itself was well understood and credit for. But the idea that the trench line might actually extend the entire effectively the Western Front, thereby including any bad flanking, was completely unexpected. A stalemate had not been envisaged by the war. As you all know, we all should know, British Army in 1914 was supported by 120,000 combat troops, 150,000 strong if we count battalions deployed around the Empire. Plus, of course, the army, which was deployed in all 1914. But it was not a large force, and it was designed primarily for small, rapid, mobile operations. Warfare take place by definition away from British shores. What was not designed for conceptually or physically was engaged against a foe that was superior. The first great reality that the British had to confront in early 15, that was exactly the type of war it now faced. It was locked effectively into a situation individual tactical skill, forward movement, covered by fire, movement by bounds, strong low-level tactics were all of less use would have been in a more mobile. Strength of the British Army were diminished by the very nature in which by virtue of its small size and relative lack of firepower, it was decidedly ill-equipped for the type of fighting it was going to face. And this was recognised fairly rapidly within British circles. It's a bit of a misconception to say generals, as A.J.P. Taylor once said, looked at the map of the Western Front and stared stupidly at it for the next 4 years. This is not strictly true. The British immediately recognised that the Western Front posed a unique set of problems that they were not well equipped to deal with. As early as January 9, David Lloyd George, then Chancellor of the Exchequer, presented a memorandum to the War Council. Lloyd George had visited the Western Front in December 14, and although he certainly had his own agenda, he did not believe that the British Army should be committed to the Balkans or against Turkey. But in his memorandum that he produced in January 15 for the consumption of the War Council, he reached a bleak conclusion that any attempt to force the carefully prepared German lines in the West would end in failure and appalling loss of life. Now, although Lloyd George wrote this with an agenda in mind, he wanted, if possible, the entire British Army transferred from the West and sent to the East. Prophecy, his prediction, was shared by other members of the War Council, Lord Kitchener, who was not convinced of the ability of the French to break through the Western Front, much less the British, who were far less well equipped for this type of work. The War Council essentially, in early 1915, did not like the British Army's chances on the Western Front. The strategic assessment of this problem was largely accurate. These were not stupid men. Were apt, with the benefit of hindsight, to dismiss the War Council in early 15 as people like Asquith, hopelessly out of their depth, Chancellor Lloyd George and Winston Churchill, and the enigmatic figure of Lord Kitchener. These men were inexperienced in this type of work, but they were not foolish or idiotic men. They were trying to make the best decisions they could with the information they had available. And the assessment that the British Army could do very little of great worth in offensive terms on the Western Front was not an inaccurate one. Kitchener's hope, and it was shared by the War Council, was that the Germans might attack again in the West, attempt to break through the British lines as they had done, or I should say the British and French lines, as they had done in 1914. It's all confidence that in the event of a defensive battle, the British Army could hold the Germans off. Now, this assumption was rather casual. It was based on the experience of First Deep, and as we've heard already this morning from Bob's excellent paper, had advanced considerably in their approach to offensive warfare from Ypres 1914. Whether the British would have been able to hold off a significant German offensive is a matter of conjecture, but the War Council believed they could. So ideally what the War Council wanted to do was have the army stand on the defensive in 1950, allow the Germans to waste their efforts and manpower against the British lines, build up strength at home, divisions, mobilisation of the British, and if possible, carry out expeditions against weaker opponents, most notably the Ottoman Empire, which of course would ultimately lead to the Gallipoli campaign.
Wouldn't they like Britain to bully anyone?
Did not permit this course of action to go unchallenged. And this was because, as Joseph Joffre commented in his memoirs after the war, in early 1915, the best and largest portion of the German army was on our soil, with a line of battle jutting out a mere 5 days' march from the heart of France. And again, as we've seen this morning, the German army did consider an offensive in the direction of Paris. The safety of Paris was by no means certain in early 1915. The idea that the Germans might launch another vigorous offensive and indeed crack the lines was a genuine one. Furthermore, the occupation of France and much of Belgium was not something that could be tolerated by the French or indeed the Belgian nation. Inaction, passive inaction, whilst the French were engaged in a life or death struggle of their country, passive inaction on the part of the British Army was not politically or morally acceptable. And remember the moral elements of British strategy. These were, the War Cabinet felt the moral weight of its obligation, allowing the British Army to stand at best idle or at worst beyond passive was not considered acceptable.
Yeah, remember this as an establishment historian, and so he will code his view in such a way as to be pleasing to patrons.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you and I, Katie, have a much more diverse and rough element of patrons, and we're allowed to say things like fuck and bullshit, and people love us for it.
Yes, they do. I can't remember that there's once called, there was a series or a film, I can't recall, the Wipers Times, and the way they depicted trench warfare was quite good, and obviously all quiet on the Western Front, obviously. If anyone's ever seen it, you know how horrifying. That book got banned by same moustache man, oddly enough.
So that's a good hop-off point to talk about some of the issues around the media. So in terms of media reportage, I mean, there was some strict application of law committing treachery against your own government, is what you said in print. You also had, I think, the Act, which came in March 1915, which clamped down a few people. There was the British government had given an okay to 6 reporters to report from the front lines. Now, might alter that. So this was in January 1915, and they chose 5 men. Philip Gibbs from the Daily Telegraph, Percival Phillips, not an establishment name either, from the Daily Express and the Morning Post, William Beach Thomas, white guy, from the Daily Mail and the Daily Mirror, Henry Perry Robinson, well-bred, the Times and the Daily News, and Herbert Russell of Reuters. And no surprise, before the reports could be sent back to England, they had to be sent to somebody for in this case, a guy called C.E. Montague, who was a former leader writer for the Manchester Guardian, now working for the government. Now, over the next 3 years, he did expand to let other journalists become accredited war correspondents. But very much to remain on the Western Front, the journalists had to accept government control over what they wrote. Everything had to be seen and vetted. Robin Williams, Good Morning Vietnam, with a bit of Trebich Lincoln in the Cap Putch post office. That's a long-term political joke for those of you who've been paying attention. And we'll get back to Trebich Lincoln in 2 weeks, maybe. I mentioned the Russian munition issue, and right from the beginning, that was a mess. Russia also had their own shortage, and their materials were so linked in to Britain, along with their finances and their contracts, that Russia was pretty much dependent on Britain. And the more Britain managed to screw up, the more Russia managed to screw up and be screwed up. And even after, so the crisis itself reaches boiling point in May 1916. Over about a week, loads of stuff just happens. And we'll take a wee walk towards that, a trudge towards that. But even after it is resolved, well, it's resolution is happening, which is like by January 1916, you see results. Even then, Russia is doing really badly as a result of Britain screwing them. And I mean, I'm sure it's been written somewhere, but Katie and I were surmising. I mean, this is, munition shortage, financial crash. I mean, this all must feed into the two Russian revolutions of 1917 and their decision to leave the war. And Anne writes, between 1.7 million and 2.25 million Russian soldiers died during World War I. Yeah, that's massive. And I guess they'd had enough. Yeah. So let's see. And all through this, there were problems with JP Morgan as well. The British government did a lot of business with JP Morgan. At one point, insisting that JP Morgan involved himself and themselves, the bank, personally in dealing with all British contracts outside, right down to the side, drawn up the agreements, and it was just a ridiculous ask. And luckily, Morgan had the good sense not to play ball with Britain. It kind of points to, I mean, Morgan's one of those big multinational banks that's pretty dastardly, but it just goes to show that, they don't spring up out of nowhere unconnected. Britain's pretty much holding the door for them, and as with many nations. So yeah.
These don't come up in my in this chat here, but I will say thank you, Sozzled, for, oh my god, so Sozzled Snake's been subscribed to this. Oh, there you are, Sozzled. Hello. Been subscribed to me for 19 months. Take care. Thank you, Sozzled. Three close.
So also all up in this was Lord Kitchener, who had head of the Navy at this point.
War Office. He was basically the lead soldier, essentially. British hero. Blah blah blah. He doesn't get out of this war alive. I love the way that
so he's.
I was going to say something, but we'll probably hit on that at some point.
Yeah, we come to. Yeah, like he hit that mine, was it? We come to March 1915. Kitchener's in negotiating contracts with the West Company for 1 million rifles. He's talking to Bethlehem Steel to try and get 3-inch shells. He's trying to mediate disputes between the Russian negotiators and King's Norton over the manufacturing of fuses. Talking to a Canadian car syndicate who had signed a large contract for shells. That's some Knight Rider shit there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Knight Rider 1916. Write your own fan fiction or put it in chat. The Canadians asked Kitchener to apply pressure on Vickers, which had fallen behind on shell and fuse delivery. Vickers replied that they were waiting powder to come from Russia, that they could not read the blueprints because they were in Russian, and Russian negotiators were overly suspicious and haggled over trivial matters. They then rejected the Vickers re-offer brokered by Kitchener because they needed the rifles right then, March 19, not May. And if the war was to stop in 6 months, they would not know what to do with them. They'd misunderstood it because Britain was the world's industrial leader. They could get the arms there quickly. Of course, Kitchener, in his defense, was one of the few people that said, no, this war won't be over by Christmas. It's going to last 4 years.
Yeah, a lot of them believed that it wasn't going to last long for reasons. The reason it lasted so long, at least in my estimations, was because all the sides basically, the French and a couple of other nations in Russia, they were all basically at the same tech level, essentially. So that's why it lasted so long. And why the death toll was so fucking high. We're all roughly on the same tech level, essentially. The plus preceding arms race before it, mostly due to naval doctrine. So wars usually come after an arms race, like new technology, blah blah blah, stuff like that progresses on, and imperial powers, especially the Western ones, like us, the Americans, French, the Germans, the Russians, to a kind of level. That's why they kept on coming to us. So that's how wars usually happen.
We should probably put up a couple of more minutes of video on the connection of the Russians and the problems they faced. Yeah, while I'm trying to remember what I was going to say, I will do that. Yeah.
And one of the great mysteries, I think, of early 1915, or indeed late 40, is the immense faith that Britain placed an enigmatic form of Russia in 1915. Sir John French commented in his diary in early 15 that our one great hope now is Russia. Kitchener's fascination with the Russian military has been well described by authors such as George Cassar. And yet there's a certain element in the War Council, almost a paradox, that on one hand there's great hope that the Russian steamroller will finally build up a head of steam and will crush Germany beneath its rollers, tempered by the brutal fact that Russia is being continuously defeated whenever it runs into German as opposed to Austro-Hungarian forces. And so there is this strange tension in the War Council that on one hand there's the hope that Russia will be the ace in the hole, on the other hand there's a realisation that Russia, if anything, may become a liability rather than a source of strength. And Russia, an enigmatic country at the best of times, a puzzle wrapped Winston Churchill famously described, was very much an unknown quantity. And Lord Esher said it best, perhaps, catching both.
Lord Esher, by the way, was a good friend of Lulu Harcourt, the paedophile, and had his own weird tastes in porn. Back in Katie and my very first Victorian Villainy stream.
Oh, I thought I recognised the name when I was watching this section. Fucking hell. Huh.
But if I remember rightly, this is a fair point coming up.
An unknown quantity. And Lord Esher said it best, perhaps, catching both the mood of the need to support the French and the need to support Russia, when he commented in a letter to Kitchener, "We cannot afford to procrastinate and muddle along, owing to the enormous strain upon France, and owing to the psychology of Russia, an empire that, the other day in Manchuria, suddenly and for no obvious reason, collapsed." Of course, the abortive revolution. And so both the potential of Russia and its vulnerability played into War Council thinking, and of course it still dates to this extent to which the Gallipoli operation was rushed forward as a means to try and relieve pressure on Russia. What these strategic realities meant, though, was that War Council hope that Britain could stand on the defensive in the west, perhaps due east, or allow the Germans to attack it and break upon the British lines on the western front.
I wonder if we'd play another couple of minutes. Sorry, have you any? What do you think of that, Katie?
Yeah, this has been mentioned in like alternative history books that I've read. If they'd actually concentrated on the east, essentially, like the Ottomans, essentially over in Turkey. If we'd concentrated on that, tried to bolster the French with more troops, but send the vast portion of our troops to deal with the Ottomans. That is quite a fun little. It's like it's a series of short stories in this novel that I read, and I was just sitting there laughing my fucking tits off, saying, "What the hell? The Germans were the bigger threat." So thinking about that one, yeah, I didn't. Until I started researching this for the stream, I didn't actually realise that they might have actually done that. But British government, you can't look into their minds half the time. Usually because there's fuck all in there. But yeah, that would have been weird.
Before the crisis blew up in the British press in May 1915, there were all sorts of issues with the Russians. In January 15, by which time the French just couldn't supply arms to the Russians, Kitchener requested a government rep come over, and General Timchenko-Rubin arrived in London. And his only qualification, according to a historian called Kasser, seems to be that he could speak English.
He'll do it. He can speak English. He can go and talk to them. You have to have more than just that.
Kitchener and Timchenko-Rubin set up a Russian government committee. Strange to think they were at each other's throats 3 years later, or well, mostly Britain was at Russia's throat 3 years later. But this committee was authorized to terminate the practice of freelance purchasing. of stuff, which kind of seems, I think about it a bit, if your job is to acquire product of any kind as quickly as possible, you don't terminate freelancers, you don't bring it all into one house, as it were. I mean, I suppose what it was, production was nationalized, but it seems very much like a commercial sort of takeover as well.
Yeah.
All under one roof.
Yeah, we were the manufacturing superpower of the world back then, pretty much. And so lots of different countries who we had connections to essentially came to us to get things. We need blah, 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 and this amount, please. And we usually get right on it.
So Kitchener started this process of bringing it all in-house, which when Lord George took over a year later, or 18 months later, he would do as well, but he would massively expand on an unheard of industrial level. But I mean, the language that his historian Kasser uses as that Grand Duke Sergei Mikhailovich. He was saying, he replied it was difficult to know how much they need because he didn't know how much longer the war would last. He was begging that they could place orders in the US and Canada. Kitchener said the Russians weren't adequately expressing themselves, that they were non-cohesive, that they were attempting to impose order because the Allies were uninspiring. And the International Commission had no influence over existing contracts. In the middle of all that, you've got J.P. Morgan, who were put into position of having to approach a Russian representative in America and ask them to cease their inquiries over munitions and getting munitions from America. And I mean, the Russians were yanked about. They were handed ambiguity, and it's no surprise that they, yanked about and handed back ambiguity in return. So what you've got coming up to spring 1915 is a munitions crisis in Russia. In the words of Kassar, partly because the government had made no preparations to produce armaments for a modern war, and partly because the artillery department in Petrograd was so slow to recognize that the shell shortage was as critical as reported by the generals at the front. And this mirrors what was happening in Britain to some extent. Well, Britain was a bit wiser back home, but I mean, the generals at the front were saying, look, we have a serious shortage here.
Yeah, all the while the people back home were saying, what the fuck's going on? We're losing thousands and thousands of troops a day. And yeah, I can understand the Russian people being fucking head up and getting a bit revolutionary in thought. Well, very understandable. I get it.
Can you remember any of the... And Jacqueline, I'll address that point in a minute. That's a good one. Now, Katie, can you remember any of the stories about the effects of the shell shortage on the battlefield?
Some of them, yeah. It was a lot of the deaths were getting blamed on this crisis, not being able to get enough, because previously we were using shrapnel, which is basically used to cut down people, soldiers, and you needed the high explosives to get to deal with the barbed wire and things of that in no man's land. So yeah, the numbers were criminally high. That's why that's why they kept on delaying it. When 5 years for the next one, Second World War, essentially. So they were terrified that from what was happening then, that lived in people's minds, people who were in these governments or MPs, and they thought they were delaying it as much as they fucking could, essentially, to build up things. So yeah, that was a factor into how we moved forward, and it's understandable. Yeah. I've always thought of us as like a manufacturing powerhouse from like basically the Industrial Revolution that started over a century before this, essentially. And the fact that we couldn't actually do this and actually build up the munitions that we need to actually do trench warfare was, okay, what the fuck's going on?
And pretty bizarre as well that when you consider from about 1906 or 1908 there was an arms race between Britain and Germany. Now it mainly revolved, in my memory, it mainly was around like submarines have submarines in? Yeah, like dreadnoughts and like sea vessels.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll probably play a wee clip in a minute from this guy talking about artillery. But
yeah,
basically you had soldiers out in the front begging their commanding officers to fire off some shells and being told, well, no, we can't because we've only got so many left and we've got to, spread them out over the next number of days and hope that more come in. I want to address Jacqueline's point quickly, though, before we do that. So Jacqueline writes, did these politicians and generals of World War I actually want this war to carry on for longer? Did any of them try to negotiate a peace deal behind the scenes? I suspect, but also, maybe I shouldn't be, as my mother often told me, giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. So the only note I have to this in my document, and there's maybe others, 22nd of November 1916, Lord Lansdowne, in a memo to Cabinet, raises the possibility that Britain should try to make a compromise peace before its resources were exhausted. Most politicians rejected this as impractical and defeatist, and that this had come up out focus on the charge that Asquith was not providing vigorous enough leadership. That's a month before Lloyd George essentially kicked Asquith out.
Rejoice, it was a palace coup, essentially, as it gets called.
I have another 3 minutes of clips talking about the artillery. We're going to play only sort of the bare essentials of this video that we need. So I'm going to play a minute, I'm going to pause it, and then another bit after that. So 29, 30. So I think this is a bit we need, Katie.
Yeah.
These parapets. On both sides, the Germans were suffered from this just the same as the British. And so the trenches would have actually resembled something quite unusual. Rather than the deep trenches you see at the Somme or in 1917 and so on, these were relatively shallow, of being deeper by the fact that they had raised parapets constructed of sandbags, corrugated iron, wood. anything you could put in there that would stop.
So, sorry, they're talking about why explosive shells were needed and not just the regular bullets.
Yeah.
Primarily bullets and shrapnel. And this meant that to break down this type of formation, high explosive, which could shatter a parapet, was even perhaps more so than would have been if the countries had been more open, as they were in other sectors of the front. Shrapnel would not break down these parapets. High explosive was required reliably. These offensives, the three British offensives, Neuve-Chapelle, Aubers Ridge and Festubert, all had the intention of breaking through the German lines and getting onto Aubers Ridge, with the hope that control of this important high ground, I use the term high loosely, would allow a further advance on Lille. It would also support the French offensive to the south by securing their flanks.
So that was Neuve-Chapelle, Aubers Ridge, and there was another one, and they were all like kind of...
Festubert. Festubert. It's in France.
Ah. Yeah, if memory serves, certainly the first two were kind of decisive in terms of high fatalities connected to the shell crisis story, or at least as the media and historians have painted things. Yeah. So I'll move on to another 2 minutes where Dr. Jones, put a wiggle in your side, where he talks about something, the artillery shortage.
Yeah.
Kind of mistakes that are born of inexperience at all levels. Something that hampered the British efforts, especially from Neuve-Chapelle to begin with, and then onwards, especially Aubers and Festubert, was the chronic artillery shortage. I've already mentioned the distinct lack of heavy guns. Heavy guns were appearing in France in 1915, but where they did appear, they often appeared with an incredibly short supply of ammunition. The British Army trumpeted quite loudly the arrival of a 15 siege howitzer named Mother in early 1915, but this gun was allowed to fire 1 round per day. And as Billy Congreve, son of William Walsey, commented, it was allowed 1 round per day, and not a gun that was going to have a great influence on any kind of battle. 4.6.
I would just say that that person you just saw there, Congreve, so that's Congreve's rockets, which was used previously. They came up with the basically modern. They're what we are based on for our missiles now, essentially. But yeah, it was invented back for the just after, but just slightly towards the end of the Napoleonic and in World War, essentially. But yeah. The original ones that they were based on were kind of not all that great.
You learn something new every stream.
That was a Sharp book that I learned that from, or the TV series, if anyone knows that.
As teacher, Katie and I welcome you bring us chocolate at Christmas.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll also accept Valentine's Day gifts.
It's because the manufacturer of those shells is mad. A couple of bucks. 1 round a day, you'll never stop anyone like that. Yeah, because it's privately expensive and firing the fucking thing was good to quite. If I remember correctly, a 5-man crew. That's why it was only 1 a day, which is daft. Yeah.
Please, sir, can I fire another round? No, you've had your round today. How many times have we talked about this? Can I get a couple of burks? Always quick with the wits. I like it. Yeah, that's actually it's pretty accurate. Oh, that was Flow Snake. Sorry, wrongly attributed. Just a couple of Burks is so funny as well. Sometimes I get stuff mixed up. Yeah, really accurate.
1 round per day and 2 on Sundays. It was not a gun that was going to have a great influence on any kind of battle. 4.7-inch guns were dated, were ineffective at both counter-battery work and at anti-trench work. Field howitzers were deemed often too light to carry out the destructive work, particularly of machine gun posts, and heavier howitzers were again of Boer War vintage, 5-inch and 6-inch howitzers, which were desperately short of range. The ammunition supply for all these was precarious. The Battle of Festubert in May effectively came to an end because the British had run out of artillery ammunition. And again, I'm reminded of the comment this morning that the First Battle of Ypres ended.
Sorry, say something, Katie?
I went, oh dear, basically that part of the battle was pretty much dusted, which was... I wondered what was going through the troops at the time when that, yeah.
The Germans had run out of artillery ammunition. So there's a wonderful memo in First Army's paperwork
back 10 seconds and catch that.
Made this morning that the First Battle of Ypres ended. The Battle of Festubert in May effectively came to an end because the British had run out of artillery ammunition. And again, I'm reminded of the comment made this morning that the First Battle of Ypres ended effectively because the Germans had run out of artillery ammunition. Similarly, there's a wonderful memo in First Army's paperwork at the Battle of Neuve-Chapelle where William Robertson, who was Chief of Staff in 15, quietly pointed out to Douglas Haig, if you follow up this fire plan, you do realise you'll be shooting off almost the entire ammunition reserves of the British Army in France in a which reconsideration of March 1915. The problems of ammunition weren't just related to shortages either. Inefficiency and ineffectiveness of shell was a predominant complaint, and it's been estimated by Nick Lloyd that even by the Battle of Loos in September, as many as 25% of all the shells fired would. That ratio of duds can be assumed to be similar in the earlier battles between March and May 1915.
So, yeah, I think he paints quite a good picture there of how fucked up things were.
Yeah, not good at all.
So where are we? We're about March 1915, and it's just about to sort of kick off. I'm going over, because I've worked quite a bit. I'm going over to the window for a puff, but and can you carry us forward a bit, Katie? And I will chime in and support you.
Thank you. Yes. Give me
I guess talking us through a bit of what's going on in March. Yeah.
I'll just bring this in a second. March 15. Okay. I'll just read out the notes and I can take off from there. March 1915, Russian munitions crisis, defense of the realm act, massacres at Neuve-Chapelle linked to shortage of artillery shells. Colonel Repington confides in the Times. Now.
So yeah,
takes over munitions committee.
So this is the first of the leaks from figures quite high up in the military. Repington, I can't remember the name of the Times correspondent, but he basically tells them, look, we're screwed on shells. There's nothing left. And, you know, as you got, you know, taste from Dr. Jones there, it was quite difficult. I mean, there were battles where they were like having to shoot off a shell every 2 hours just to convince the enemy they were there. And what was it? 2 on Sundays, 1 every other day of the week. I think Dr. Jones didn't mean that as a joke. I think that's probably close to the truth. It's the way he tells them.
Flow Snake, I love that. We own and control the means of production of comedy. Well, you're leading off the clown show that is the Liberal government at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Flow Snake and a couple of Burks forming a humour collective in the comments there. Great stuff. I can't think of 2 people more better to be in charge of directing that committee. Sorry to those of you who are also funny, but I'm sure they welcome you in. Yeah, so you've got a committee set up. Lawther is throwing his dick and balls around and convincing people that stuff's a bit screwed. And to be fair, he's right. So you have what is probably the beginning of the munitions shortage being taken out of the War Office and out of Kitchener's responsibility. And this divide between the Munitions Committee and the War Office, between George and Kitchener, will only grow as the conflict goes on. And it'll get a bit nasty too.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, they do not get along, do they? The public over here literally see Kitchener as a fucking hero. The man gets praised by most of the British people here because they what he blah blah, great for the empire and all that nonsense. So yeah, then when this upstart politician from Wales starts trying to take over what he sees as his realm, his area of expertise, yes, they do not get along.
All right, just to completely knock you off your narrative, Kitty, I think Flow Snake is asking to see these various pillows. So there's quite faded. The replacement. And then because I needed an extra for the shot I was working on at the time, I think that's the wife, maybe. So, yes, stories of war, gore, and sex pillows. Yeah, or love pillows. Yeah. So, are there any over April and May Russian crisis that we talked about continues to play out?
Yeah.
And then pretty much May 14th to 21st, 1915, kind of everything kicks off. Actually extended to, so everything in our wee summary here, Katie, everything else is happening between May 14th and May 25th. So it's an extremely tight kind of time, tumultuous place in the British press and the British politics, all linked into this crisis. Yeah. Do you want to read through it, and like I can maybe comment where I can remember?
Cool. Yeah, give me a second. Okay. April 1915, Russian crisis deepens. May 1915, Russian crisis deepens again. The Times attacks Kitchener in the War Office. Fun times. Head of the Navy resigns, triggering Asquith's opening coalition government with Bonar-Law of the Tories. The Mail attacks Kitchener. Holy fuck, the people attacking a beloved war hero. Huh?
Right. Kitchener was massively popular, despite being a screwing up. And Lord Northcliffe, who was behind the Mail, took a massive risk. and actually sales of the Mail dropped. You know, the Mail being seditious in a war.
Yes.
Who would have thunk it? So essentially, Bonar Law of the Conservative Party had a deal with the Liberal Party in power under Asquith, and that was don't be critical of the government during wartime. And as reports had come out in the Times about the shell crisis and how hard it was, from Colonel Repington onto their correspondent, and Bonar Law went to Asquith and said, "Look, we're going to have to start taking shots at you. Pardon the expression." And so there was a want for the British government or parliamentary parties to present a united front, and Asquith was essentially pushed into opening up a coalition government as the only way to do that.
Yeah. Please come and help us. Would it be pertinent to say that? Is it true to say that it was basically the papers was an open season on the Liberals then?
Yeah, pretty much. So I mean, the Times attack. I mean, I kind of, without even having read the source material, I just speaking generally, it seems to me to be very much a leak of vital necessity to alert the public to a serious problem. The attacks the Mail made on Kitchener after the coalition government, if I was a small C conservative and not a radical smelly lefty, I might say that the Mail laying the digs into the government right after was a bit predatory.
Yes.
A couple of things. Yeah, sorry. Do you want to...
The Daily Isle did what? That is rather funny, so Snake. The Daily Isle did what?
Daily Isle.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of things happened immediately as a result of this coalition. So Lloyd George took up post as a Minister of Munitions, which brought him more into direct conflict with Kitchener, who really dug in. Who was in the War Office. Essentially, Lloyd George was responsibility for manufacturing of shells outside of the War Office. Kitchener didn't like this. He started getting really digging in, obstinate. He cited, there was a duke we mentioned, a Russian duke with a big long name.
Is it Mikhailovich?
That's the one.
Is it
Say it again.
Mikhailovich.
Nice. So Kitchener said it was a personal commitment between him and
Mikhailovich. General Mikhailovich.
And so that's why he doubled one of the things he used to sort of excuse himself. What we find in next month is that Kitchener does sort of seem to double down on his sort of efforts to make more of a passionate commitment to sorting out Russia and facilitating them with munitions. And he does this quite well. Unfortunately, Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone. Especially if you had earbuds in.
Can we have a few bless yous in chat? Let's make this a religious experience. Like all good 1/10 of an orgasm.
Sure. I've got very delicate nasal passages, everyone. sorry. Plus, fuck pollen. The only reason you haven't seen me using my eye drops is because I've loaded my eyes for most of the day, and I keep on stabbing myself in the eyeball, which is not fun. So my eyes are just going to be horrible and red looking. You can tell. No. At least they're not watering. That's something.
So over June, right after this is all blown up in the press, caused a change in government. The end of the last Liberal government ever that's been not a coalition. Kitchener sorts out Russia at some pace. Historians kind of are in consensus that he does a proper job of it, except it plunges Great Britain into a financial crisis. The Munitions of War Act passes the next month to maximise the output, and that's David Lloyd George leading that, and we'll get into that. But at the same time, Russia faces bankruptcy because of mismanagement of the shell orders. There's just a whole flurry of miscommunication. Britain fails to honour their contracts with Russia. JP Morgan even issues Britain with a financial warning. Shows some hesitancy in underwriting their loans.
He wasn't going to backstop us, essentially, which would, the financial crisis deepened at that point. So please remember, we're still one of the most powerful nations on the planet at this point. We still have an empire. And if the country goes bankrupt, that's not going to be good, is it? And whatever party is in the lead, basically in government, just one party, or if they're in coalition, whoever's the prime minister and the four great offices, essentially, they're in charge. It all gets pinned on them. And going through a financial crisis during the war.
A lot of it's linked into the exchange rate. So to do business with our customers, whether it's about other countries, whether the shells or materials, the exchange rate is seriously damaged, and it throws everything into spin. In August, Britain and France meet to preserve the exchange rate by underwriting it with gold. Russia had actually proposed doing this a lot earlier, to a lesser amount, but when the two countries met in France, Russia was invited to be part of this, but couldn't show up for whatever reason. So we're again left out of the loop, and the language barriers still kept feeding into this. By October, this is when we get Britain insists JP Morgan negotiate all British funded shell orders. I actually have a bit of detail on this, which is worth a bit of dive, actually, because I find it interesting. When's this? 1915. So Riley writes, Morgan had placed £72 million in orders for Russia, with another 21 million authorized but not yet placed. This 93 million approached the 107 million in orders that Morgan had placed for Britain during the same period. There were difficulties in ensuring the Russian technical specifications required to conclude the contracts. Sometimes they had to be sent from London, sometimes from Russia. And when, after delay, prejudicial to negotiations, they finally arrived. They were found to be in Russian. And it's also implied that the Supply Committee in America did not undertake translation themselves. Morgan, by extension of official procedure, borrowed translated specs from companies that already had Russian munitions contracts. Initially, he refused to take responsibility as a number of orders awaiting Russian government translation mounted up. The British insisted. So you can see there, I mean, how Morgan is deep in what's already growing to be a mass new industrialization of war. What's the right phrase, Katie?
Manufacturing?
Material.
Yeah, manufacturing. So it's creating material, which is the fancy word for saying fucking things for war, guns. So rifles, sidearms, things of that nature. I make the distinction. What they were needing were ones for field artillery or field pieces, because the connotation you say guns, and people automatically assume like either a handgun or a rifle, things of that nature. So they're field artillery. Be thankful for all the soldiers that I know in my life.
I mean, it's it's one thing like a bank operating as a lender and a place to lodge. It's another thing them going around calling people in, drawing up contracts for them, not for the money, but for the order for the manufacturing. Deeply embedded in the war machine. The British insisted that Morgan negotiate all Brit-funded orders, though he'd not signed a contract, as the Russian government had never formally appointed them as their agents. He also doubts that the American firms would honour the unsecured credit of the Russian government. This dubious status further guaranteed British control of Russian purchasing.
Yeah.
And you also had increased competition from rival Russian agents.
Yes.
There were whole mix-ups by the ministers of trade and industry, central war industry committees, foreign purchase committees. The September agreement held the promise that the combined efforts of British and Russian agents in America could impose order at the source. So just to check in with where we are up and by January of 1916, you've got 20 out of Britain, you've got 238,000 shells per week produced, and the source for that is Lloyd George's war memoirs. But it's certainly what you've got at about this period and all through 1916 is a mass mobilization of Britain, where finally everybody is I mean, before 1916 was out, you'd see conscription, but what is happening on the ground is that everybody must be involved in the war effort. That, you know, if you were working or you were unemployed, you should be shipped over to munitions factories or food to go directly towards a war effort. All manufacturing, railroads, railways, all transport, all kind of brought under this war effort led by Kitchener and Lloyd George.
I've always said this, that I'm not a big fan of conscription. I don't like it. You can't just say, you're going training, here's a rifle, go over there, shoot those people. because most of the time that doesn't work. You can't force people to go into war. My belief only. No. I'll add that caveat. There's still conscription happening across the world, though. No.
Well, actually, there's a very interesting quote. So, conscription was by Asquith. It would be called the Military Service Act. It was passed into law in February, early February. He'd introduced it early January 1916 for single men of military age. At the end of his speech in the Commons, he said that the bill would prove to be a dead letter if the men would come in now of their own free will, for the group system was reopened and the military authorities would continue to allow them to attest. Sorry, I didn't give them any time there. I've maybe missed something out. There was some pushback. I'm not looking at it right now, but there was some pushback about bringing in men that didn't want to be there, that it would cause more harm than good. You would bring in traitors and you would bring in seditious elements, and then legitimacy, give them voice. It could do more harm than good. By March of 1916, so almost a year on from the explosion in the media, you've got some of these severe impositions from the Defence of the Realm Act hitting the Clyde. So did you pick up on that, the Clyde Workers' Committee story?
Yes. Yeah. So yes, oh God, oh, my mind's just went blank. Fuck. Give me a minute. I'll bring up the.
Layla, welcome in. I am paying attention to chat. Thanks very much for keeping it going, people. I'm mostly paying attention. Flow Snake writes on conscription. A lot of troops didn't like it either, I'm told by veterans. They often find undertrained people who don't want to be there rather than us, unsurprisingly. I've accidentally clicked Layla's hello as a highlight. Well, that's good. Hello, Layla, again.
Hello, Layla. Oh, God, start of the daily worker. Where's my
Jacqueline writes, I can imagine some generals saying, what? They've run out of bullets? Well, tell him to just shout bang. That'll give those Jerrys a nasty turn. So if you're looking at the big doc, Katie, you're headed for March 1916.
March. That'll be the next one. The initial demands for higher pay were large. The committee took up matters of high rents. Opposition was led by a group of working class women, including Mary Barber, Mary Burns Laird, Helen Crawford, Agnes Dolan, and Mary Jeff, and culminated in the rent strike of 25,000 tenants in October 1915. Desert and David Lodge and Arthur Henderson, the Liberal Party chart.
Oh,
here we go. Shop steward, who is basically the head of the union for that's what they're called. They're called shop stewards. William Beardmore and Company was warned that he would be sacked if he spoke to new employees. The following month, he resigned his union post, and the strike at the factory ensued. Under the Defence of the Realm Act, you're not meant to be doing that, which is rather horrible in my opinion. vanguard were either unaware or unwilling to comprehend this. Oh, they banned the worker. Oh,
so I've got a paragraph here from Spartacus. I'll read out, and if you follow from you.
I've got it now. Yeah. Yeah, carry on, Andy.
So in 1916, the Clyde Workers' Committee journal The Worker was prosecuted under the Defence of the Realm Act for an article criticising the war. William Gallagher and John Moore, the editor, were both found guilty and sent to prison. Gallagher, the writer, for 6 months, and Moore, the editor, for a year. The Clyde Workers' Committee was formed to campaign against the Munitions Act, which forbade engineers from leaving the works where they were employed. On 25th of March 1916, David Kirkwood and other members of the Clyde Workers' Committee were arrested by the authorities under the DORA. They were court-martialed and sentenced to be deported from Glasgow. So, yeah.
Fun, yes. You've always been seen as uppity, campaigning for better worker conditions, and
how dare you? How dare you?
How dare us? Yeah, then he piss off Glaswegians. Then he piss off Glaswegians. You're not going to. We'll rant and rave about it, essentially, or maybe do other things that I won't mention. You can use your imaginations. The Red Clyde Tigers were a thing.
But now it's your turn to have a go at me, Katie, because the next month there's a violent uprising in Dublin, Easter Rising, and despite having not enough heavy explosives to fight a war, the Brits managed to send a big boat down the River Liffey to fire explosives at a couple of maybe 100 men who were out back and rising. The important thing to remember about Easter Rising is it wasn't that big and it wasn't that effective.
Yeah.
It only really became effective through martyrdom, through how the Brits responded, and that was to execute the leaders and a number of other men. And not through, eventually that got around the world. And just because there was no internet back then didn't mean it was entirely slow.
Yeah. For the level of communication, it actually went, maybe not top speed, but it got out there, the information. Yeah.
There were a couple of there were a couple of problems, and if I remember rightly, conscription wasn't a thing in Ireland then, but because of the numbers that they needed, conscription would be a thing, and this was certainly something of some serious debate, whether you would put the Irish, having gone through the Easter Rising, force them to join the army, because you're looking at desertion, you're looking at treason, and you've also got, I'm jutting ahead a bit here, to July 1917, April 19, the Americans have found out very much about what happened in Ireland, and they don't like it. The execution of Easter Rising leaders, which, if they were just banged up, it would have disappeared. Maybe like Bloody Sunday, but by going in full cocked, it swelled a mass uprising against the British. Where
it did indeed.
We have what we have today. We have Ireland is a separate, most of it is a separate nation. So 1 year on, Lloyd George, who's managing the Irish problem as well,
busy boy.
Proposed to America that if they would come in and join the war effort, one of the bargaining chips he offered them was immediate home rule with 6-county exclusion. I don't know if I've said that right, probably, but Irish independence.
Yeah.
With 6-county exclusion. Yeah. I mean, there was and just from Lawther, who I remember studying in my own Irish history courses, said this was facilitated by the Trinity College meetings with nearly 100 respectable figures, and had a mood of deep resentment at how the Northerners had treated the Southerners. However, Unionists refused to shift, and Lloyd George told Bonar Law that Ulster should prove it placed empire above all else. I don't know where that quote comes in the chronology, because it would seem in 1917 to 1918 a very, very ugly thing to say, given the mass of Northern Irish murders and casualties at the Somme and on the global stage. Because of what's essentially, as Robert Newman makes out in his very wonderful stage show, essentially a war over oil, an invasion of Iraq, the first invasion of Iraq for oil, which is, he makes a very good case that that's what the First World War was about. I'm inclined to believe him. Or what was about why World War One broke out? Archie, wasn't it some bloke called Archie Fernando?
Oh God, yeah. The one that sticks in my brain the most is his coffee. And the fact that was he a lieutenant? They were wondering who's the spy.
Mud coffee and rat o' van. It's a rat that's been run over by a van.
Oh God, it's been a while since I've actually seen Blackadder Goes Forth.
Yeah. So yeah. Have you read much on the Easter Rising or the Britain, Ireland, America?
Yeah, well, that's my stepdad's area of expertise. Essentially, that's what it is. So I've read most of the stuff I've got from him, and he suggested things that I read up on, and I have in the past. It's been I keep on meaning to get borrow a couple of his books, and maybe rewatch The Wind That Shakes the Barley again, because it's been a few years.
Oh, I don't believe I've seen that.
You know, may I recommend it to you? It is good.
Let's get our specnologies onto that, or it's probably on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah. You said
like that. I'm okay.
I was just going to ask you, do you think the North got betrayed essentially? I know it pissed off a lot of people.
Wonderful historian, Lennon Hall Library, now no longer with us, John Killen. You'll have seen him if you watched our coverage of my he called the Anglo-Irish treaties, the two of them, the unkindest cut. And I think, I mean, you did a honest majority of the north part of Britain. However,
there was,
the way the line was drawn, I mean, I don't know. It seems to me it didn't please anybody. There were a lot of people that wanted to be part of an independent Ireland who were stuck in the north, and a decent chunk of people that wanted to be part of Britain that were stuck in an independent Ireland. There's also been some historical criticism towards the direction of a 4-county Northern Ireland, which might have reflected the popular mood for allegiances more accurately. But then a 4-county Northern Ireland couldn't really exist.
What 4 would it have been?
What 4?
Yeah.
County Down, County Antrim for sure. I can't remember too. What Fermanagh, Armagh, Tyrone, not Tyrone, I think. And the other one. But I mean, down in Antrim, mostly. I mean, but every one of those 6 counties, even the 4 counties, once we work out what they were had huge populations of Republicans and Catholics. And we have to remember, of course, that, you know, being Catholic didn't necessarily equate to wanting to be part of an independent Ireland, but it did equate to facing prejudice in job opportunities, in educational opportunities, in housing opportunities, in electoral opportunities. So, because there was, let's just face it, unionist bullying for many a year. And actually, that really only came about, or if you decide the aristocrats of Northern Ireland, because it is a holiday, or was a holiday home for the British gentry. I forget my point there. Let's see if I can. Yeah, if you leave that aside, a lot of those problems Catholics were faced with became more and more pronounced in Northern Ireland as a separate entity from the Irish Free State and later the Jacqueline's off to bed. Jacqueline, if you're still here, you won't be soon. Good night. We love you lots.
Bye, Jacqueline.
Rest and restore.
I remember the way.
Hydrate.
I remember how they taught us in school.
And sorry, Katie, quick interjection. Yeah. And take your meds, which I'm going to now.
Take your meds, everyone. Take your meds. I have taken mine because
sorry, I was meant to give a warning after 15 minutes and I completely forgot. I am not responsible for your medication. I'm barely responsible for my own. And I have to look around and find it.
That's why I've got alarms on the phone and on my clock to my left. That's my left. This is the right. Most of our history books are to my right, over there.
Yeah, sorry, my medication's not in its usual place where it should be. That's quite odd.
Meds missing in action.
So, bear with me. I'm gonna off and leave you in Katie's capable hands while I figure this out. I might need to run down to the kitchen, check if they've been misplaced down there, and if not, just get some. So, yeah. Oh, and I've locked out Katie Marshall. There she comes back again.
I return. Hello. I like the way we got taught in school. Well, at least when I was at school. I don't know what the curriculum is now. Fat lad. So we got taught the 6 counties. So Fermanagh, Armagh, Tyrone, L. I keep on forgetting what L is. Antrim and
L
Down.
is a long way. L is a long way of saying Derry.
Oh, Christ's sake. That's what the L is. That's why I blank it, because it's Derry. It's Derry, everyone, honestly. I've had family members, actual blood relatives, visit the free city of Derry. Naughty Katie. So it really should be, so that'd be Fermanagh, Armagh, Tyrone, Fat Dad? Fat Dad. Plenty of those. Thank you, Andy, for that. I keep that's why it gets blanked. Brilliant. Yeah. Elkin. Ah, Ella's 11. I have never seen Stranger Things to the point that both my sisters keep on saying to me, you have to fucking watch it. I will get round to it, my lovely dears. Don't worry. Great explanation, yeah. It's amazing how much basically colonialist history that gets rammed down our throats in the education system here in the UK. To the point that we don't get taught, or we never used to get taught our own fucking history, like I'm talking about Scotland. Don't get me wrong, it probably doesn't get taught much. The actual brutality of it and what we were like as a colonial empire. I want to change that. Welcome back.
Thank you. Med's located. We were hanging out a bit today in a couple of Burke's voice channel, and I was irritating everybody by filling up 3 weeks worth of medication very close to the microphone. Utterly please if you're not so. Katie,
Smelly lefties, both of us.
Katie has appeared on their stream a few times. I've been on once and would hope to be on again quite soon, maybe this week. So a couple of Burks do some really vital stuff in terms of what I think of as like street level reporting on fascists, on people who frame themselves as citizen journalists, but are actually riot inciters and who regularly issue aggressive threats to people, irregardless of their race or gender, and often have a criminal history to them. So, yeah, and they're a very incredibly supportive community. Yeah, really try and watch one another's backs and look after one another.
You, I don't think you were in the call for this one, but I brought up one of them, so it's stupid fucking auditors. So AY Audits was covering basically their little mini march in Crewe today, and we were watching part of it to see what they were up to. AY himself was being a moaning little bitch. Who'd have thunk it? Someone on the right moaning constantly.
Some of the people covered are Very difficult. I think you have to go into because of the type of work a couple of works do. Some of it can be quite upsetting and distressing on occasion, and they do their best to mitigate or give out warnings if that's happening. Absolutely. And then, I've made my pitch. Very important.
Flo said they didn't have a stream today. That's quite a regimen, Layla. I've been on estrogen for pretty much most of my life. Started when I was 16 for reasons that we will not go into just now. If anyone wants to know, I can talk about it later. But yeah, estrogen's fun. I don't naturally produce it on my own.
Update achieved. I hope you get your
join us, Andree.
Okay, so where had we got to?
I was going to pause you for a second. I will return. Give me a couple of minutes, please, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, let's do that.
I won't be long.
And I can take a service will be resumed as pause. If you didn't get a bathroom break when I took one, you might like to join Katie in her bathroom. Oh dear. I've had a stressful week. Just let me have that. Yeah, hopefully things have changed. I guess a lot of people have had a stressful week with the heat wave. It has kind of brought out some edges in people. Like the good amongst us would prefer not to have had come out. Some people cope better with it than others. I'm just going to scroll back on chat, or actually I don't need to because it's on my screen. Yeah. Oh yeah, Layla, I had one of those as well. Yeah. I used to have I used to take, I think it's an antipsychotic called Seroquel. Some of you might have heard of. And I used to let it set it on my tongue and let it dissolve there. I guess I don't know why, what my motive was. Well, I can't remember, but maybe it's kind of like a challenge. I could get really sort of sour, and I think that was the moment I decided I had to just swallow. Oh goodness, I've missed a ton of comments here. Oh. Yeah, I've missed the whole Omaha Jacqueline tetrahology. That looks like a good one. Arthur Miller's All My Sons, US Planes in World War II. Not aware of that one. But then I don't know if I've read any Arthur Miller besides Streetcar. Wasn't he Streetcar? Which was part of my American English Lit our Fountain Access course. Oh, a little personal note. Actually, I'm going to save that till Katie comes back. Yeah, I got some good news this morning. I'm quite chuffed about. are there, Layla writes, are there Scottish horror films? Because personally, I think people in a horror movie speaking a Scottish accent sounds hilarious. I'm sure there are. There's only one comes to mind. And I can't even remember the name of it. But if you take a moment and you go onto my channel and either search for Screen Cleaner episode 1 from last year or look on the Screen Cleaner playlist, there is a insert by a wonderful Scottish history and geography streamer called Random Scottish History. And she made an insert talking about a Scottish horror movie, which is one of those films that's like really bad. So she talks about that for about 4 or 5 minutes. And it's, yes, both appalling and hilarious. So that's in Screen Cleaner episode 1, Halloween. And that's time-stamped, so you can go to that insert quite easily by just clicking on the bit in the description. Yes, Layla expressing some just lurking. Okay, yeah. If I could paraphrase Layla, the inference seems to be that this is quite a boring subject, and that's my inference because that's how I feel about it. World War One, the only like really shit by link of being a war were thousands, if not millions, were killed and certainly millions injured. Yeah. Welcome back, Katie.
Thank you. I have changed. The problem with heat waves, and me in particular, I do have a nasty habit of sweating quite badly. So I changed out of my, don't get me wrong, it was an all cotton dress I was wearing, but still kind of, it's right back up, what the fuck? And I can hear the rain pelting outside.
Our ratings are bouncing around quite, we've been down to like 8 people 20 minutes ago, and now we're up to 17. That's interesting. Yeah, it's some good news, Katie, and chat. Oh, David McGuinness, welcome. If you already heard us pushing David McGuinness, I referenced Screen Cleaner a few minutes ago. He pops up there quite a few times, giving some excellent readings of the media and how they operate. David is one of 2 Davies who, and that is the name of their channel, the 2 Davies. Every morning, weekdays at 10:30 a.m., David will cover a newspaper review for about 25 minutes. Most of the morning's papers, except one that's pretty detestable. I mean, most of them are, but like peak detestable. And then twice a week, I believe on Mondays and Thursdays at 4 in the afternoon, David McGuinness and his colleague David Milligan will go through about 5 or 6 stories that have caught their eye in a bit of detail for an extended hour stream. They've got a very broad audience base. You're invited to go and be part of that. Kev rated earlier, Layla, and we didn't even notice a Kev raid. Oh goodness! And Welcome, Kev Raiders. Thank you.
So sorry, comrades. Thank you, Brummy Comrade. Thank you so much. Praise be up, Brummy Comrade. Everyone go and follow him. He is awesome.
Always a pleasure. We get the highest quality readers, don't we, Katie?
We do indeed.
Kevin Logan, we've had No Justice, and now David McGuinness is popping in and hopefully bringing a few of his followers with him. So I just before Katie, I got some really good news this morning. My student loan has been approved in full now, because I'm doing my master's in film and television production over 2 years, which is part-time. I will have to apply for a new loan this time next year, which I'm very likely to get. But for this year, my tuition fees will be paid in full by that loan. So that's and the university identification and confirmation. So come September, I'm good to go. And in fact, because my co-host on the Discworld podcast is tutoring on the same module or the same masters that I'm taking, he's been able to use his contacts to slip me advanced copies of module handbooks, and I'm already about 50 pages into reading one of the key texts, the mandatory required readings. So yeah, it's all going straight ahead. Nice. Streetcar was Tennessee Williams. Yeah, thanks, Omaha. I thought that one. I thought something. Yeah, and I knew about the Crucible, but I didn't say because I was embarrassed at not having read it. Yeah. I'm sure I've read some Arthur Miller though. Yeah, I can't think what it was.
Nice one, Andy. Congratulations on getting the funding. Yay!
Thank you.
Ostensibly my student loan. Well, I didn't. Rejoice, no student fees because Scotland is based. So I didn't need to worry. But the ones that you still had to basically pay a yearly sort of payment towards just kind of your education, like the use of their facilities and stuff, because I was doing a STEM degree. And to actually finish it off, my previous professor, who had since retired in the intervening 20 years between me starting my degree and finishing it, I didn't need to pay for finishing off my 4-year degree because STEM. So I'm quite lucky. You just need to pay for your books. And my ones were looking expensive. I don't know how much your books are going to be. Are they kind of expensive? Or do you know,
I've looked at a few of them and I didn't like the prices. Way more than anybody should pay for.
One of the books that I had to do for buy for my second year was 140 quid.
Let's go back into this, and I'm see if we can polish this off before 1 o'clock. So I'm going to do a recap. If you've just joined us, we're talking about shell prices tonight. Actually, that's what it says on the label. So here's where we've been. 1914 to the summer of 1916. We have 5 selected journalists cleared for reporting. JP Morgan not backing loans. Russian munition deals a mess. A deepening crisis. Defense of the Realm Act. The massacres at Neuve-Chapelle and Aubers linked to shortage of artillery shells. A fact Colonel Repington confides in the Times correspondent. The Russian crisis deepens and deepens. Like Britain, they haven't enough shells. They're firing off like a round a day just to convince the opposition they have some kind of capability. The Germans are also facing their own crisis that fluctuates. Kitchener is being attacked in the press by the Times and the Daily Mail, which some of it's actually, a lot of it's warranted, but Kitchener's also incredibly popular. So that kind of blows up in Lord Northcliffe's face.
Is Northcote a Liberal or a Tory?
A cunt.
A cunt.
So that's not terribly helpful, is it? I think he's a Tory. Yeah.
Is he a Tory?
Yeah. Essentially, what you the government are presenting a united front, but when all the stories are coming out through the press and the colonels and are all feeding back to government, Tory leader Bonar Law goes to Herbert Asquith, Prime Minister, and says, look, we can no longer afford not to be critical of the government, and places Asquith in a position of having to form a coalition government, thus ending the last purely liberal government. Moves in as Minister of Munitions, taking responsibility for the shell crisis outside the War Office, which Lord Kitchener is in charge with, placing the two of them head to head. Kitchener manages to work to solve the Russian, to some extent, to considerably improve the Russian shell crisis. But as a consequence, he pushes Britain into a financial crash and Russia into bankruptcy. It infects the exchange rate between Britain and everybody else, and sort that out, underwrite with gold. Lloyd George brings in, and Herbert Asquith bring in conscription, the Military Service Act, clamping down, prosecuting people under the Defence of the Realm Act, notably the Clyde Workers' Committee. We get the Easter Rising, which throws the Irish chip into the equation, which comes out in the Battle of the Somme. And just before then, Kitchener dies, which takes out our main antagonism in this competition that's going on between them. And
I remember correctly, he was 75 or something. He was in his 70s, wasn't he? He was 75, wasn't he? Something like it was about that.
Yeah.
You have to remember this man was old, really old, but kind of old. For a soldier. Yeah.
You've also got, like, I've got my notes. India was told at this point that no, so India were also supplying high explosive shells, and they needed their own supplies. And Britain was actually fucking India about as well with regards to contracts.
Really?
India needed to produce, and yeah. And this was an ongoing thing. So here they were, Lloyd George bringing everything in the house, India being told, well, we don't need you anymore, despite Indian, it's kind of an odd way to treat Indian troops who are off fighting for Britain. And of course, we saw last time we talked about India, in light of Churchill. Much similar sort of thing, but on a much worse scale.
I never got taught to us either. Fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I found out about the Bengal famine. That was fun, learning about that. My God. I knew I hated the British Empire or the British state. Yeah, justified. And I've always called Churchill a monster for that reason alone. Don't get me wrong, he done some good things, I guess.
Well, now's your time to double down on Lloyd George, because I know you've got some hatred boiling there, Katie, which you wish to vent. So, in September 19th, and this is really, with Kitchener out of the picture, this is where Lloyd George comes into the ascendancy. In September, he's in the press, his tactics of the ranking figures out in the battlefield and how they're doing things, which does not go down well with the press. You've still got he's questioned some French generals about British tactics. The Morning Post has leaked the story, and George found himself pilloried for lack of patriotism. And bear in mind, you've got the Somme offensive going on from July through to November, 2 months later. So Lloyd said that quite rightly.
The death toll of the Somme, major factor in that, by the way, caused just that was mass killing on an industrial scale. Yeah. That's right. There's whole regions of Scotland where a lot of the troops basically got conscripted from. They're empty. There's people that's lost in. Basically, Scotland got hit pretty hard, as well as the Irish. Fun, delightful, like George. Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, so it's about this. So despite being in charge of the Ministry of Munitions, Lloyd George, and actually just your earlier point before I go off on one, this sort of mass industrialized killing has got to have a look with this mass industrialized manufacture of war materials. It's the old argument that the gun lobbyists use more guns, less killings, which doesn't really bear out.
It doesn't. No.
It's a bit of Fuchs' equation.
Yes.
So Lloyd George wants more and more control, and I mean, in terms of winning a war, I think credit must be given to Lloyd George. Actually, no, let me distance myself from that. Lloyd George's team, because Lloyd George was an ideas man. He did around and filling in paperwork and communicating with people. He left that to his team. People like Chris Addison, no relation to the actor who plays Ollie Reader in The Thick of It. People like Chris Addison who knew how to run departments, who knew how to communicate with lots of different people and how to juggle paperwork. But by November, December, Lloyd George wants to build up a war cabinet and exercise some power in it. And he sees Asquith as an impediment to him having the freedom to do as he would like. So George, and this all comes from still dealing with the munitions crisis, which is still very much a thing at the end of 1916. So he goes to Bonar Law, and they agree between them that they'll push Asquith out the door. Lloyd George will take over as premier, and they will, one of the caveats in the deal is that they will form a war cabinet, which is consisted of 5 people, 3 of which are Tories and 2 of which are Liberals, and all of the 5 have been agreed on by both parties, or but actually probably more accurate to say both have been agreed on by Lloyd George, Bonar Law, their top Morgan McSchemies, or whatever the equivalent was back in 1916. And that's what they kicked Asquith out the door.
See you later, Herbert. Goodbye. They basically could him. Not that we know anything about that in the modern era, obviously. I mentioned nothing. Someone's resigning, I think. Who'd have thunk it?
So there were 10 Liberals in the new cabinet. One of them was Herbert Samuel, who we talked about in the Marconi scandal. He was caught up in that, buying shares.
Ah, yes, he was. I remember that.
Before they went on the market and benefiting quite handsomely.
The last time I checked, that's called insider trading.
Yep.
It's illegal, everyone, by the way. Not allowed to do that. But it's different if you're in cabinet, oddly enough. Different rules for the goose and the gander. Fun.
So what? I've been looking at some of my notes that I really find hard to believe. But it comes from, I think, 3 or 4 different historians. So I just have to wrap my head around it. And I'm going to read it out. And it talks about how Lloyd George's new war cabinet government changed to cope with events around it. New ministries were created to tackle labour and food control, and those were the 2, I think, where the focus was on.
Yes, I think they were.
Blockade, pensions and shipping, focusing on immediate crisis of manpower. Figures were from outside politics to fill ministerial jobs. Okay, smart, perhaps. Viscount Davenport, a retailer at food control. Okay, and Sir Joseph Maclay, a ship owner at shipping. The great majority of ministers were appointed because of their standing in respective parties rather than any particular expertise they possessed. That's also hard to believe. A number of weak ministers were removed in December, like Harcourt. Remember him, the paedophile? The war cabinet, where's this note? Well, I'll get through this paragraph and then I'll cover it. The war cabinet suffered the same fate as all the inner committees Asquith had set up. It gradually grew larger as more ministers and soldiers were called on to attend or insisted on being present. Packer writes that it found itself clogged with details, as Asquith's cabinet was. Decision-making tended to be delegated to further committees. Some of the arguments that racked the previous government had been decided, but this was because the main proponents of Labour McKenna had been removed from office, rather than because a new administrative structure had been created. There's a really bizarre story that I have to read out. And I just want to put it out to you guys to see what you think of this. And it involves your old friend. July 1917, Churchill arrives at the War Office to find the proliferation of departments had gone so far that 50 were directly responsible to himself. Thing. But that's 50 departments under Churchill that he wasn't quite on top of it. Who the hell could be on top of 50 departments?
No, too much for one person.
So essentially 1917, Lloyd George untapped, and you've got more and more industrialization. Actually, in 1917, Northcliffe, who had been sort of warned not to attack the government and had been lightly spoken to, Lloyd George is trying to get him in again and again. And in 1917, he does succeed, and he brings him in as director of propaganda when he arranges, and Northcliffe arranges for 4 million leaflets to be dropped by air into aircraft. I'm sure that's not the air deal isn't part of the distribution deal. Are you stretching or typing to me?
I'm stretching because my shoulder blades are misbehaving. I just need to stretch a bit.
You do what needs done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there were a couple of trade-offs as to things that were being done. So, I mean, if you remember World War II, well, you weren't there at that time, but things like the foundation of the NHS and the welfare state were their tokens to us to say, hey, you guys count, you know, we value
there you go.
We'll tear it down in 50 years, but you know, you have to deal with that then. For now, here's some crumbs.
Yes.
And in World War II, one of those was the Representation of the People Act 1918. An act of Parliament passed to reform the electoral system, sometimes known as the Fourth Reform Act. So, led to the inclusion of women in the political system, enfranchising women 30 who met property qualifications, giving those women the right to vote. Never mind all the suffragettes that, you know, dying or imprisoned, you know.
Fun time for Cat Mouse Act. Delightful.
I just want to put, there's a few little stories that come from, I mean, as we're winding up the shell crisis stuff, there was a story about Arthur Conan Doyle visiting HM Factory Gretna, one of the new national factories in 1916. He described a highly explosive paste which was being mixed by women there who worked in the factory as the devil's porridge. An appropriate name for the highly explosive mixture of nitroglycerin and nitrocotton. The dried paste or cordite looked very similar to uncooked spaghetti. The health, so that HM factory Gretna was built on the English-Scottish border specifically to produce cordite, and there were a lot of these factories around. They had to set up a health and munitions workers committee because there were like a lot of occupational safety and health issues in those factories, and 3 of them massively serious. So brace yourself for this, or if you don't want to listen to it, like duck out for a minute.
Trigger warning, everyone.
An explosion at Faversham involving 200 tons of TNT killed 105 people in 1916.
Yeah.
The National Shell Filing Factory, Chigwell, exploded in 1918, killing 137. And the Silvertown explosion, which occurred in Silvertown, now part of the London borough of Newham, killed 73 and injured 400 on Friday, 19th of January, 1917 at 6:52 in the evening. Remember, there was essentially the conscription, domestic, as well as sending soldiers to the front. So those men and women in those factories were required to be there by law.
Yeah.
Some shitty stuff. We've got so the Representation of Women Act, one of the throne, the move towards Irish independence with a 6-county exclusion was another token we were given. Yeah, actually, on the subject, I mentioned Irish conscription earlier.
Yeah.
And I got that wrong. So my notes say May 1918, owing to the widespread protest opposition to Irish conscription, back down. The IPP, that's the Irish Parliamentary Party, had been outvoted 3-1 in the Commons. They had returned to Dublin in disgust, carrying out the abstentionist policy so demanded by Sinn Féin. And that might be well be the roots of Sinn Féin's current abstentionist policy in the Commons. That's Northern Irish Sinn Féin, although I believe they're one party.
Yeah.
So we've got another video clip, which I think is about 5 or 6 minutes long that we might run. It's by the same Dr. Jones, Spencer Jones.
Yeah.
I
know what you're going
to show now. It's essentially 4 big challenges that were faced in sorting all this out, and the consequences of it. Where is it? Oh, yes, sorry, I've navigated the wrong timestamp. Okay, 43. I'll bring that up on screen now, and then Kate will pause it and maybe chat about a few bits just to round us off. And if, by all means, if you'd like us to do something, please put it in chat, and we will try to spin off on it. So let me just get the right timestamp. That's very tiny. Let's get some look at the small screen. So again, this is Spencer Jones, military historian's address to the BEF, and I can't remember what the BEF is exactly.
I know.
Oh, go for it.
British Expeditionary Force.
Well
you see it again. You see it again in the Second World War, a couple of decades later.
A couple of perks if you're still in chat. Can we have 10 points for Katie? So this video at their convention was filmed and broadcast on YouTube by the Western Front Association. So yeah, let's.
1915-2, particularly in offensive terms. And so, these were the 4 realities that the British Army faced in the early 15th. The strategic reality that the Western Front appeared impregnable, or if it appeared it would not be by an army as small or weak as the British, that the army needed time, it needed time to equip, to adapt, to evolve. The battlefield realities here, the difficulty of thinking and very adaptive opponents in the form of the German army who occupied better ground, and geographics that the British were sector front that was ill-suited for offensive operations. What then were the consequences of this? Midland battle hadn't quite come to an end. Asquith's Liberal government wasn't entirely the problem. The economic problems or problems with the exchequer, the failures at Gallipoli, but the shand which arose when put on to Charles Repington about the public here, which in turn the British government has us for. Yes, with the Liberal government fell and a coalition was formed in its place, thereby ending the Liberal government of England. The Shell scandal, though, was still a wider strategic reality that if the British army was to fight in strength and with value on the Western Front, it needed to fight, it needed itself on a previously unforeseen level. Muddling along, as Lord Esher had warned against in early 15, was beginning to reap its dangerous rewards. The British army did not have the firepower to do big work West Front, and it cost Asquith, or should say Liberal and Irish nationalist government, and instead he was forced into a coalition, something he did hoped to avoid, but was ultimately strong-armed into.
I'm just looking back on my notes here. April 1915, Kitchener receives a message telling him Russia's artillery stock was down to 200 rounds per gun.
The coalition government had its own problems, which are beyond the scope of this paper to discuss. Nevertheless, the fact that the government had changed heralded, at least in Lloyd George's eyes, and although he's not an entirely impartial witness, I think his comment is interesting. It heralded, in his words, a new seriousness to how to take the war. It had been shown in that first 5-6 months that the French were not going to break the German industrial completely, and instead we're going to it had to take the war. It would be a poor year for the Allies, for the Russians in the east, and disappointments for the Western Allies on the western front as their battles miscarried. And further to that, by August, reversing his earlier, he hoped that the whole on the Western Front, new armies were ready. He commented, and there's a certain sadness about this comment, that unfortunately we had to make a not as we should like. It's much debated the extent to which Britain limited liability war in 1415, making most of the Royal Navy and the economic strength of the Empire, while avoiding a mass army being deployed on the continent. But by August 15, the second landings at Gallipoli, Suvla Bay, continuing problems on the Western Front, even bigger problems for Russia on the Eastern Front, it was clear to Kitchener that more and more the British strategy, the cautious British strategy that had emerged in early, simply not do.
Just to pick up on that from some notes in my file again, from June, a couple of months earlier, you've got 2 government factories and 16 private firms engaged on munition work who were short of 14,000 skilled workers. You've also got Lloyd George in position of taking full advantage of the Munitions of War Act to establish the industry's priority in commandeering fuel, transport, land, raw materials and imports, not only to raise production, it took steps itself to raise capacity, speed up production by eliminating inefficiencies in the manufacturing process and making technical innovations. Of course, whenever there's a war, technological innovation grows in parallel. It's a pity our species is so shit about many things.
True.
And instead, Britain, like a workman whose clothes had been caught in the cogs of a machine, was slowly but surely being drawn ever deeper into the Western Front. But the army would not emerge as a majorly significant component of the Western armies for some time. It's not really until it takes its place at the Battle of the Somme in 16 that it's able to carry the weight of expectation that perhaps the French hoped of it in early 15. Part of the reason for this was that the high losses suffered in 15, not merely at Spring Effect but later at Loos, perpetuated in experience. The casualties fell disproportionately in components of the BEF, the regular divisions, the Indian divisions and territorial battalions. Particularly the casualties amongst the regulars could be considered wasteful of British manpower in offensives that were never likely to achieve truly dramatic results. But these highly experienced men could not be replaced, and this cycle of loss perpetuated in experience. The rapid expansion of the army meant that the army would always be inexperienced by 1916. That dilution would occur, but I think it was accelerated by the casualties of 15. And as Nick Lloyd's calculated, the actual death rate in terms of as a percentage at the first day of the Battle of Loos, the death rate is actually slightly higher than the first day of the Battle of the Somme in 1916. And these casualties, although new army divisions are involved in the Battle of Loos, again they fall heavily on the regular divisions.
Andy.
The Battle of Loos by November, a sad memorandum passes around.
he is correct. The casualty rate for Luz was higher on its first day, but the reason the storm is so fucking brutal is because it lasted far too fucking long. That's why it was they were basically putting their troops through a fucking mincer day after day. I'll give them that. The casualty rate for the first day of Luz was higher, but overall, Thom and Passchendaele were two of the most fucking brutal fucking battles that ever happened during the war. They were just completely murderous. Or because the European monarchies, the family was fighting amongst itself. Fun. It's imperialism and monarchy make no fucking sense.
Yeah, big men sending little boys out to fight their battles. And
the cabinet go and fight to see if they like it. Which they can get people to go and get fucking either shell shock, or which is called PTSD now, or worse.
Do you know,
some survivors don't like it.
I'm just coming up with a new idea for a reality show, Katie. So it's called Blood Bowl, right? Royal Blood Bowl. And what you do is you get elite members of society, prime ministers, president, royal family members, the commanders in chief, and you stick them on an island, a very small island, like we're talking no bigger than a hill, right? And you film it by drone, so you get all the angles, and you throw a few sticks and like barbed wire, sticks with nails in, and they have to beat one another to death. But what we do, we select, like, these people have grudges against one another, so there's something in it for them, right? Because otherwise they might get us to fight their battles for them. And then if the survivor gets put into the next round to fight another of his opponents, because it usually is a man. Sadly, I'd much prefer to hit all genders equally, but anyhow.
Yeah. Well, I know some of them did serve a few of the backbenchers throughout the interview, like between then and today. Essentially, some of them have actually served. So if you put some of the backbenchers who have served, I'm thinking of two right now, they might actually come on top. One of them's Clive Lewis, by the way. He used to serve. Don't get me wrong, the Tories had officers. Penny Mordaunt, Tom Tugendhat, Rory Stewart, I don't know. So they're officers essentially. But there were some backbenchers who were squaddies essentially. That I'd add that. That's like Fortnite for the scumbaggery of the world. Fun. I'd give my right arm to see that. I really would.
Well, let's spend another minute listening to Sharp Chin, Dr. Spencer Jones, and get through this. Wind us up.
And the army saying we can no longer expect the same standards from our regular divisions. Effectively, they've been so badly smashed, they've ceased to have that regular character. They have lost that experience. And I think that the high casualties of 15 perpetuate that inexperience. Whether it could have been done any other way is, of course, a point of conjecture. But what was true and what was recognised, as Kitchener's statement indicates, as asked to a coalition goes, as Lloyd George's comment that the war would be taken more seriously shows, was that a long, hard road would lie ahead for the British Army. We talk about the learning process, the learning curve, if you will. I actually prefer the term learning race, because remember that the Germans were learning just as rapidly as the British, and indeed the French. All forces in this war were learning, and in early 15, the Germans were certainly, in my opinion, learning quicker than the British Army was, and that ever-perpetuating experience that characterises 15 would be would hamper operations into early 16 as well. It was clear the war would not anytime soon by mid-1915. It was also clear that Britain would have to burn than it had hitherto done so. This was the ultimate consequence of the parties that shaped the BF in 1915. Thank you very much.
And that's probably I probably should say something on an outro. My comment which opened up this stream: war, what is it good for? Fuck all.
Especially that mass death that happened. Delightful.
The problem with war, so this might shock a few of you, it might even lose me a few subscribers. Please don't take it out on Katie.
Don't worry.
I feel that the death penalty should be a thing. However, let me, important caveat, the people that would administer the death penalty are the exact people who should not administer it. And those with war, there can be reasons for fighting a war, but people who direct charge on the or additional or old pre-internet models were thinking about war, and the war where war is fought in massively violent terms. The people in charge of those wars are the exact wrong people to be in charge of wars. So yeah, it's horrendous loss of life. Layla, I'm just going to pick out Layla. I hope mind. She's said halfway through that this is a bit of a boring subject, and I think it is. I don't know if we've had a few viewers drop off because we're not, there's a lot of Victorian villainy in this stream, but it's not kind of typical of the more autobiographical stuff that we do. It's kind of a collection of people, really. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel that what I've talked about, it's just kind of hanging open-ended. I don't know if there's a conclusion or a concluding thought or a summary. I don't know. What do you think, Katie? Anything to add? Oh, Katie, your mic's off. Might be. Oh, hello. Yep, I can hear you. I think. Test.
Oi, oi.
You're back.
Hello. Yes. All I can say is David Lloyd George, fuck off. That I don't like him now. I got taught in school what he was like, what good things he done while he was in cabinet and while he was prime minister, blah blah blah. A lot of context was left out of this, and actually doing this one tonight especially has shown me what the man was like. Holy fuck.
Just had a revelation, Katie. Can I just throw this in before I speak? How fucking cheeky am I? I think this feeling that I have of not ending the stream or not having a resolution is actually reflective of the war itself. it was formed on some bullshit. There was the resolution, as they saw it, was Versailles, which massively punished Germany to the point where their persecution engendered the far right to rise up and commit some of the greatest atrocities history has known. You know, I think the resolution of World War II was a lot better than World War I, but it was just that open-endedness, that refusal to deal with things. They say they took war seriously, they didn't take peace seriously. And I think that's part of why I'm so frustrated. But back to you if your microphone's working. No, it's off again.
Who? Yeah, well, that the Versailles ultimately gets broken here, I think it. But yeah, it massively punished. The French wanted to make it even more fucking brutal, essentially because of their what happened with them, essentially, and what happened here.
I think, yeah, get a USB plug in if you can. Oh, spare, right? Maybe spare. Case. Yeah, Layla remarks my what I said about the death penalty. I'll just read it aloud, and I feel it's a very important qualifier. It can only ever be a thing when we can be sure it can be used to take out the worst of the worst, and when we can be sure it can never be taken out on us. 100 fucking %. Thank you for that, Layla. And I don't want to belabor this point, but we always hear the notion that when we take out certain criminals, oh, you form a power vacuum and somebody else will just step in and it'll probably make things worse. But every time we deal with one of them, it's a warning to the rest of them. Maybe don't try the same shit again. And some of them actually learn. But yeah, unfortunately, the people that are in charge of that level of power are the wrong people. Are often the people that would, yeah. Well, I think you know where I'm going with this. Yeah, and I don't even know if I've ever expressed this opinion to anybody before. So I'm not used to talking about it. So yeah, just for you lot. You're back, Katie. Good. That's a nice. Isn't it? Oh, she's got her lollipop mic. Great.
It has RGB lights in it because I'm a bright, colourful person. This is the first mic I bought, by the way. And it's been the one that's most reliable. Don't get me wrong, I love my lav mic, but...
Right. Let's wrap a bow on the shell crisis and then we'll put in half an hour of bullshit. Because our bullshit smells like roses.
It does indeed.
Have you any final thoughts on that, Katie?
Yeah, the inability to actually get the shell crisis sorted quickly enough led to a lot of our troops, who a lot didn't want to be there for obvious reasons. The inability back at home led to this happening, and looking into that Liberal government before the coalition, when basically Asquith went begging to the Tories, come and help us. So yes, it explains why the high death toll, at least in my eyes. My opinion only, obviously.
One of the facts of war is that it is conscription. You're involved in a, if a war happens around you, unless you're one of the leaders of it, you're involved in it and you don't have a say about that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sending young men to die is they're reprehensible.
Somebody made a point earlier in stream, or question, did they ever try and broker peace? And they didn't, and that would be a much better way to end a war, to open up lines of communication and try and work something out, because a whole generation was nearly wiped out. We didn't have nuclear missiles, but we had massive casualties, followed by the utterly decimating, I don't want to call it a flu, but that's essentially what it was, wasn't it? Which took out, like, what was it, 20%?
Yeah.
Our species needs to be not our own adult amongst us. Christ, right? Okay. Your last
I just
chance
want to read
to
out.
add something. We need to be talking fun stuff soon.
I just want to read out a comment from Leila. Thank you, Leila. That's similar to a quote in MASH. Super Hubby's rewatching, by the way, on telly.
It's a good show.
Yeah.
Funny,
war
very funny
is
show.
worse. War is worse than hell. Hell tortures the guilty. War tortures everyone. True. Thank you, Leila.
I like it. Bit of poetry there.
That
Thank
is
you,
good.
Leila.
Yeah.
Not doing a very good job of lurking though, are you, Leila?
Oh, fun little fact about that, about MASH. Myself, a team of this numpty, and only one other person in a team got the answer to this. What war was MASH? And most of the teams in the pub that I used to drink in went Vietnam.
Only in the 2027 reboot for Hollywood was it in Vietnam.
War tortures everyone. The people who get sent into the war and the people back home who have loved ones who are fighting in the trenches, and everyone working in those munitions factories, and the wider public in general worrying about everyone over there, and people working in the factories producing all the arms and stuff. Yes, war tortures everyone. Delightful. I want to end that. Thank you. Well, I see the day. Probably
I remember
not.
MASH being repeated on BBC Two around 6 o'clock in the early 90s, maybe. And
yes, you're correct. I watched it.
Yeah, and it was a phenomenon. My family, around the dinner table, watched it. And the great thing about a British import was it stripped all the canned laughter out of it. And so you could hear the natural rhythm of the way it was and how the actors performed it. And for such a mainstream program that did sort of do a bit of, war, isn't it so awful? It genuinely was funny and genuinely was very touching at times. It was a massive influence on me as a writer of fiction. Plug for my novel Occupied, which is a fictionalized account of the Occupy Belfast movement and campsite. The sort of dialogue that they use in MASH, and it's very related to the Justice League International, to Stephen Moffat's comedy writing, that sort of rhythmic beat was very much an influence on me in writing it. So if you'd like a good rib tickling piece of fiction with a lot of socio-political commentary, check out Occupied on my Amazon author page, or on Books to Read, where you can order it from Kobo and all, like, about 12 different retailers. Link in the description.
Thank you, Andy. Do it, everyone. Do it.
And you know what? You know what? If anybody doesn't have money, I think the paperback's about 11 quid, and that's just for expenses. And it is a big, thick read. I think the Kindle's maybe about 2 quid. If you're seriously committed to wanting to read it, but you can't afford to buy it for whatever reason, DM me and I'll email you a PDF. But it is, warning, it's like 450 pages. You know what? That's just the length of a long Pratchett. You can get your head around that.
Give me a moment. Let's see. What's it? Maybe this one. That. Stay there, purse.
What was that? A thud? Oh, that's coming up soon for my reading. It's a few books ahead. My next one is you can tell me, you can look, and there'll be a running order in there, Katie, and you can tell me what's coming up. So I've just read, what's it called, a second Aching novel, A Hatful of Sky. I believe the next one is Going Postal.
Yes, it's Going Postal.
What's after Going Postal? Is that Thud?
Yeah, Thud.
Oh,
so
right.
You're a couple of books away.
Cool. And Thud has a couple of spin-offs. There's a fictional novel within it called Where's My Cow? Which is also a novel. There's a short story.
It's a book within a It's a book within a book. It's brilliant.
Right.
It's in this.
There's a Pratchett collection of short fiction. Half of it is Discworld short stories, and there's a Thud related story in there. My Hackerspace also has a Thud board game, and it's a hope that PJ and I can get over there and film an episode over there of playing that game. We plan to record this week on A Hatful of Sky before I go to Warsaw I fly out I get the boat over to Liverpool on Thursday, so I won't be about for next week's stream.
I am deciding what to do next on Saturday. Don't worry, everyone. I will get back to you. I will keep everyone posted.
You have a fantastic group of potential co-hosts. I noticed Layla actually made a comment on that, which was quite enticing, which I believe was something to do with our interest in ancient history. If you ever talk ancient history, Buzz, I love the Kingdoms era China, but the World Wars mumbles. So there's
I get a lot of the people who I follow on the YouTube. A lot of them basically try to avoid anything getting close, let alone the 20th century. I don't blame them. I don't. For all things Hellenistic, you know where to find me, everyone, because Hellenistic nerd here. Give me the Peloponnesian War any day.
Orbzine, Bruce, hello, welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. Bruce is Orbzine, has, if I recall rightly, has some firm knowledge of history of this era. General Allenby soon died on the Western Front, as did Rudyard Kipling's son, my boy Jack.
That literally changed him. He was a proponent of the war before that. Then after it, basically firing shots at the government. He didn't care if it was when it was the Liberals or the coalition with the Tories. He literally just went hell for leather and started blasting them, essentially, metaphorically. Because that losing his son radically changed him. That's why before it, he was a big proponent, and that just flipped a switch in him and said, "No, this is fucking horrible."
We will be talking about 20th century China in July. So the rough plan, and there might be a week or two out, we don't know yet. But when I return from Warsaw, 2 Saturdays, or streaming 2 Saturdays time, we are going to part stream on Trebich Lincoln. We planned this before. Katie put a lot of work into it. It's an area of expertise. Essentially short pitch adventure, kind of like evil Forrest Gump. Like this is Victorian villainy.
Oh my God.
It's height. Katie unfortunately had to go into hospital the night we were doing the stream. Because it was very sudden, I didn't know when I went ahead and did the stream. But there's been enough time since I did that solo was past that we're going to revisit it, and we're going to do it over 2 shows. So we can really get into a bit of detail, have a bit of fun with it. While he was a bit of a nasty character, there's a lot of beats in his journey that are pretty hilarious. I think you've got.
Oh God, yeah. There's so much fun, so much fun.
Yeah. And I think as well, I'll return to the source, because in my stream I covered those big beats. Spreading it out over 2 shows will give us the chance to get into detail. Like I'll pull out a few of the quotes about some of the bizarre things.
I'll try and explain to when was that? Because I've been in the hospital between that Andy doing that stream and this one.
That was the time you broke your fingers. You had a fall, and
yes. I broke 2 of my fingers. These 2 on my right hand. So these 2 right here. So my ring finger and the one next to it. And I broke 4 bones in my hand down here. About here. Here-ish. Right here. And I had to go and get it set, essentially. It's still not healed properly. It takes me forever to knit my bones back together because the autoimmune. Yeah. I just wanted to bring something up. I've played Thud with my sister. She's got the board.
Oh, right.
We're both Discworld fans. And we've played Thud. Oh, it's delightful. I love it.
Game ability out of 5 or 10 stars?
I read up over it on the bus journey going to my sister's house, which was essentially 45 minutes to get to my sister. This is my middle sister, so I'm the eldest. I've got a middle sister who's 18 months younger than me, and I've got another sister who is 4 years younger than me. So it took me 45 minutes to get from this flat to where my sister was, and we played it. And we played it like 4 or 5 times because we finished it quite quickly. Said, "Are you fully read up?" "Yes, I read up on it on the bus to you." Said, "What?" "No, you're meant to read it. You're meant to prepare over the space of like a good few days. Then I need it." My brain works differently, apparently, to lots of people.
I thoroughly enjoyed Hatful of Sky. I have a lot to say to PJ and our audience about that when we record. But like, each page of it is, if not utterly funny, surprising and inventive. And, I think it's book 32 or something like that. And I kind of expected, we're kind of into the bit where the titles are kind of lesser known to me, and I expected a bit of a dip in quality, but it just seems to be getting better and better. Each book is... So I'm really digging my Discworld journey.
my three favourite, well, I'll group the two of them together. So The Colour of Magic and The Light Fantastic. I grouped those two together because they're basically the same story, essentially. Then Thief of Time, which is right there. I can see it.
Thief of Time's good.
And Thud, because Sam Vimes on, obviously. Sam. Love Sam. And Captain Carrot, who is the rightful ruler of Ankh-Morpork. Spoiler. For anyone who has read Discworld.
I feel, I mean, I really enjoyed Colour of Magic and Light Fantastic when I read them, but I mean, those are the first two books I read from the Discworld. And you know, I remember them as decent, but they don't come close to anything that came after. The first book I utterly fell in love. Well, Guards was fantastic. It really marks it. But the one that really, when I realized I was head over heels in love with Discworld, was Moving Pictures, which is set in Hollywood. Actually, the Discworld equivalent of Hollywood.
You're too media-brained.
Has only one L in it, like Hollywood, which is also the spelling of the Hollywood where I live. So, but it's just, it's got like, I sat and counted the characters. Well, I didn't. I pulled them off of a wiki, and then I applied numbering, and there's like 138 characters in that book. And you never lose sight of who's who. It's just astounding. And I do recommend you check out our episode of Moving Pictures, because we put an extra, if you've read the book, probably would help. We've put an extra bit of work into it to make it a bit of an event. But there's been so many. I kind of dread if we have to like rank or anything like that, because I really would be stuck to do that. Would probably be a bit uncomfortable, actually, but certainly some sort of recap. You know, I think we're 8 or 9 books to go. So, yeah. Oh, and a half, because we've read half the short stories.
Yeah. One of my favourite like side books of it, Nanny Ogg's cookbook.
Right. Yeah.
She's my favourite witch. I love Nanny. Don't get me wrong. Weatherwax is obviously awesome.
I think I'm more Granny Weatherwax. I think I'm more like her. I understand her very well and feel a lot of the same things she feels, and is sometimes looked upon the same way she is looked upon. Nanny Ogg is life and soul of the party, though. She's so much fun. Yeah.
The reason
I'll be a bit critical, actually, a bit negative. I think reading them like I'm doing them chronologically, usually one a month, it has robbed me a bit because of how the witches books are presented. I mean, I think Carpe Jugulum is the last one. It's number 23. But there's a period where there's a witches book every other book, and then none at all. There's like the last 19 books, not one of them focuses on the witches. They kind of appear as side characters, and that's, you know, it's a bit spoiled and then taken away cold turkey.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I wonder if, you know, but those books, at the end of the day, those books are still there, and I can go back and I can go reread them and enjoy them. I certainly plan on rereading, which I enjoyed immensely. That's top of my reread list.
I love The Truth. It's really good. Yeah.
The truth is about journalism. It's essentially the birth of Gutenberg in the Discworld.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan Abulaith, if I've pronounced that correctly. I try to.
You have indeed, yes. How goes it, my comrade? Dan is at the other end of the M8. He's over on the east, near Edinburgh. Hi, Dan. I'm over here in the proper capital, Glasgow. Come at me, Edinburgh folk, I dare yez. I'm in another country. Oh, it's you, Surly Dev. Hello, Surly Dev.
So I'd be taking oh, sorry. No, you finish it. Say what you were going to say.
No.
I was just going to say I'll probably be doing 2 more videos before our next stream. So, well, actually, no, 3. But I've made one of them. It's on my Patreon, patreon.com/Andy Luke. 1 measly quid per month. So I'm rounding off my Press Gang series of video essays, which honestly are only if you've seen the show and you're a bit of a nerd around Moffat's first series. It's one of his finest. And I'll be doing another Sunday Comics review, which I think is going to air next Sunday, nothing tomorrow. And it'll be most likely on a free graphic novel called Minority Monsters, which talks about sexuality and gender and diversity, and it's wonderfully funny, which helps it a lot. And it kind of mixes up sort of new web or classic web comic style and fan and zine style. I've enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
How do I get the hound or the dog of Cooley?
Cattle Raid of Cooley.
Cattle Raid of Cooley.
Patrick Brown, as shown on camera. So essentially, you want to Google. It'll be I can't remember if it's patrickbrown.co.uk or pattybrown.co.uk, but if you go to my Sunday Comics review of it from last week, there's a link description, and this is sort of a magnum opus. I actually lived a street away from Patrick when he was making this, which took him so he was publishing a page online a week over 6 to 9 years. I'm a bit hazy on that.
You what?
Yeah, massively researched. He's got about 3 major sources and about 12 other ones. It kind of blends the traditional Irish myth with like domestic realism and humor. It's as you can see, it's in red, which is really unusual, and that is actually red biro pen. Paddy's technique is not to pencil anything. He would thumbnail pages, but he would just sit down with a red pen and just go at it. He'd also use Tipp-Ex as a brush, so that gives it some interesting effects. And yeah, it's might be a bit exorbitant. Like Patrick's there's a small press independent. It's just him doing him and trying to distribute his work. But the book itself is £20, which is for like 300 pages is fantastic value. That you won't find any other graphic novels of that length at that price, unless it may be carried by a major. So yeah, I'm off to Warsaw with my friend Lewis Gault. I'm taking a boat over to Liverpool next Thursday morning, or this Thursday morning. I'll be staying there overnight, and then Lewis and I'll take a flight out to Warsaw. I'll be back week, back time the 12th. Yay! Yay!
Oh, fun.
Oh, it was all a fucking shite.
We're having our one here in one of our cities here in Scotland, mostly Glasgow. They have theirs on the 4th. Fun. I will close all my fucking windows. I don't care how hot it gets on the 4th. I'm not listening to them and their little whistles.
It's really, really sad, isn't it?
As alluded to, I
have to do a midweek plug as well, actually. As alluded to, maybe a couple of Burke's wonderful anti-fascists YouTube channel who do real genuine reporting, original reporting, and kind of experts in the field. David McGuinness, if you're still in chat, you might want to think about reaching out to them and maybe doing a stream with them. But certainly do check out their channel at a couple of Burkes, Burkes. I put that in chat right now.
I will say to everyone what Dan Abuleith just said. Orange wankers. Never a truer statement has been made. Yeah. My home city of Perth has one as well. It's delightful. Before he shuffled off this motor coil, my uncle used to be part of it.
Actually, I just want to address Layla's point. I did address it last week, but I guess Layla left before I could address that. It's my understanding, I guess, of AI as opposed to normal AI. There was one diagram used, and that was for the shapes. The text that accompanied it was all original construction, and the statistics that directed those shapes was original construction. And there's been discussions about it since, and it was when it was constructed, it was by our ally Specs Beans Farmer, and it was a very last minute construction because there had been a computer crash the previous night, and it was quite a big, important stream. So, Layla, do have just please put it on your watch list. They're doing some really valuable work, which I've not seen anywhere else on YouTube. They do not use generative AI as a regular thing. I think this has been the only that I've seen it used. Well, honestly, Layla, if you were part of their community and they could have reached out to you and said, could you do this for us at short notice? And I guess for any artist, I guess that would have been your preferred solution. Certainly it would have been mine. As part of the Caption Comics Festival, we are doing a rant against generative AI panel. Actually, it's not even called generative AI; it's just AI. Where we are completely opposed to use of AI in any form at Caption. We have a complete ban on it. Like many of the comics news sites and like Broken Frontier, who do incredibly good work, who have attracted a lot of anger because of their zero tolerance policy of AI. And we stand good on them. And Caption has the same policy.
With the help of Specs, I've kind of softened my approach. Don't get me wrong. I don't want it in the hands of big tech. These capitalist bastards are just going to use it to the things, TOS. No. But yeah, I can see the utility of large language models. Don't get me wrong. They can be used. So Specs is helping us use it correctly, essentially. But I don't want it in the hands of these capitalist scum.
The correct approach to the use of any AI is to check it. Check it. Do not rely on it. Treat it as a source by all means, but one source alone isn't enough. It has to be verified, and that should be done manually. So yeah.
Oh, don't worry, Layla. I use my own. I do my own research because the scientist and nerds, and I've got lots of time on my hands. I can do the research into any sort of topic that I want to cover on my stream. Essentially, I still do the hard graft, and I'm using basically it's collating, essentially. But I still go and check it anyway. Because there is a lot of guff.
Specs' use of AI, which you refer to, was something I was even more skeptical of.
I understand.
And I've been looking at the resources he shared, and essentially it's a search engine powered by AI. I mean, search engines are already search engines are AI, but they're kind of what's called weak AI or soft AI.
Weak's a better term for it. Like what?
So, I mean, AI is already everywhere. Autofill. If you go on autofill's AI, spell checking's AI.
Thank you.
Audio transcription AI. The type of AI that Layla is singling out, generative AI, is much more. It becomes much more problematic.
It does.
It's largely involved in creation, and that's where it's an issue in so many fronts. Employment, reliability, like of truth, of presenting reality, it can be deeply flawed, which, as we've seen, has been used by the far right. The damage they perpetrate, and I absolutely stand by a couple of Burkes as leading the charge and opposing the far right, or being a key player in it. So, yeah, that's the important thing to remember, Bruce. AI is, I mean, it's a very easy catchphrase to pick up on for rallying against. But the real problem comes from generative AI. You've been using AI for almost as long as you've had it. We all have. Anyway,
we have to because the providers that we have to use, that we're forced into because of capitalism, they've been using AI after fashion for the last sort of 15-20 years, essentially. Yeah. So we've been using it for a while. Don't get me wrong, these large language models that are getting proliferated now, yes, I still have issues, do not worry. Plus, I do my own research.
And there's great, I mean, for Screen Cleaner, I wrote a section on AI as well. One of the last 2 or 3 episodes I did, and there's huge environmental costs. But one of the things I found out was the environmental costs, the amount of water AI burns, wasn't quite as clear cut as I wanted it to be in my pulpiting. And let me explain that. When we, not that it wasn't, not that it was, we burn up an awful lot of water when we do, every time we are using the internet, stuff that we take for granted affects the environment, not quite as much as large language model AI, but large. significant. So
Yes.
yeah, everyone's still shit, people. We still suck.
The human race, people. Human race. There's many different types
Yeah,
of people in the world.
Give us some good news, Katie. Put happy on it.
Put happy on it. I'm doing kind of well. Keir Starmer's resigned.
Yeah. The sausages have been released.
West Streeting isn't in cabinet anymore. I suppose that's good. But the fact that he's
I hadn't heard about that. That's right. No, I had forgotten.
Yeah. The fact that he's backing Burnham means there's a backroom deal that's happened there. I'm pretty damn sure of it.
Hold on, let's just tease this point, because Streeting resigned to try and trigger a leadership election, but it didn't work. It didn't work. Dumb fuck.
Apparently, he's got the numbers now. Apparently.
Yeah. Oh well, it's assured. We don't have any say in it, but he's pretty much coronated.
We should have a say in it. Apparently, we live in a democracy, everyone. Sorry. I keep on having to remind people every so often, especially some of my family members, oddly enough. No, we don't live in a democracy. Constitutional monarchy. Yes, still have monarchy. Hello, everyone. If you don't know, Republican. There shouldn't be monarchies at all. Ever. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I'm just noticing I still haven't got a reply yet from Parliament petitions. Should I probably talk about my petition? Because I think unless you're on the backroom discords that Katie and I are, you probably don't know. So in relation to this anti-trans law from a couple of months ago, I decided I'd...
Thank you, Supreme Court.
Hey?
Thank you, Supreme Court. Yeah, fucking suck.
Yeah. So every card bully has a crotch you can punch him in. I thought that was a good place to aim, because written into their little bigot law is that adequate provision must be made for trans people with a third bathroom space or general. And I thought, here's something we can play with. So I did a little research into the numbers of toilets in the United Kingdom, and we actually have a major public toilet shortage already, particularly in England, where there's one public toilet for every 15,000 people. Now, it occurs to me, leaving that aside for a moment, if you count up, the public toilets by two, male, female, you get a figure that would be an extra trans space or gender neutral space, and you add that on top. And hey, we could really play ball if we take in trans people with disabilities, because you want trans people with disabilities to have their own space, right, for their own, as the law requires, and you don't want them impinging on these cis people with their disabled space. But hey, I mean, go for broke. We can have male, female disabled space, trans male, trans female disabled spaces too. And we've also got to address this shortage. So I have a petition in the Parliament for 1 million new public bathroom spaces, and for funding those in places like offices and stuff. And I also remarked that there's been a lot of protests lately, good patriotic protests, right, where grown adults are urinating and defecating in the streets. So that needs to be sorted as well. So if that petition carefully where the petition gets through Parliament on their websites. Katie and I will put out the link, and we very much appreciate you signing it. So yeah.
If I've got this correct, I think I was the first one to sign it. Pioneer here. Haha.
Maybe.
Everyone get behind me. I'm in the lead.
It sounds a bit like you're calling your viewers Satan.
I'm saying nothing.
That's my unique selling point, Katie. But you know what? You stream more often than I do, so you can have it.
Thank you. Your petition is a really, really fucking good idea. So for it to get debated in the actual chamber by all the assorted scumbaggery in there, has to reach 100,000 signatures. So the minute it actually gets approved and it goes live, I will literally keep on banging about it on every stream that I do. Go and sign the fucking petition.
I think the biggest challenge to getting approved, that's the first step. I honestly don't know how I would reach 100,000 petitions, signatures, but I'm going to try.
There's a committee that actually decides these things.
Yeah. And the biggest challenge at that is they're choosing consciously to interpret it as a joke or parody petition, which I've tried to make clear. I've done my best to make clear it definitely isn't.
Oh no! You've had a few of us look over the wording. No. The wording of your actual petition and what you want, the petition, what you want them to debate and possibly make actually decent legislation for a change. Who'd have thunk it? A government actually doing something that the people want.
It makes sense. If they're going to fuck about with us, well, let's play football. Let's bring it on. And I think, this is coming back to an idea I had like 25 years ago. I'm starting to believe a lot more on that. If you're going to do activism, you really should try and make it fun as much as possible. Make a bit of mischief in it, make a bit of comedy, make a bit of entertainment. Stick it to the man. Take your shots and try not to miss. It strikes me as a second petition for Labour to give some sort of official apology to Holocaust survivors accused of anti-Semitism might be a good bet too.
Yes.
Maybe widening that up to Jewish people accused of anti-Semitism and people not guilty of anti-Semitism. The biggest group in that diagram.
Oh, by the way, everyone, your last did actually get a petition. She done a petition years ago to actually make them implement the Smith Commission, and I worded it to friends who are on the indie grouping, the indie people up here. They came to me to actually word it. So I done this just shortly after our vote to actually implement the Smith Commission, and with the help of MSPs and SNP MPs down in Westminster, they managed to debate it. We still never got the full Smith Commission, so that was back in 2015. I done it and I worded it, and it got approved. Mine's got approved in like a week.
You explained this to me before, Katie, but you're going to remind me what mission.
Right. We didn't get our independence. We got our referendum in 2014, and it was called the vow that we'd get all these devolved powers, and to implement that, it was Lord Smith, basically a Labour peer, and said you need to get these are the recommendations. Obviously, all the ones connected to foreign and defence and shit like that, but everything else basically should be devolved up to us. And it got debated in Holyrood and things like that. And I thought, I'm going to lead off that. And I emailed
my MSP for Glasgow, the constituency I'm in here, and my hometown one up in Perth. And they loved the wording of it. Said, you came up with that on your own. The kind of a committee with family members and friends who are pro-indie. But yeah, most of the wording, the way I've sculpted it, yeah, basically me. With a couple of people's help. And they promoted it and they managed to debate it to actually give us the Smith Commission and to actually implement it to give us all these devolved powers. Still haven't got them. Been waiting for the last 12 fucking years to fucking get the full Smith Commission, but we're never going to fucking get it because no fucking government, be it Tory or fucking Labour or coalition with the Lib Dems. That's right, in my eyes, Lib Dems can also fuck off. The least said about the Tories, the better, because they're unionist bastards. Well, so's Labour.
I saw Andy Burnham getting caught trying to curtail Hollywood's powers during the week. And
yes, he was to change the ban from... Yeah.
One of the things he put up was, well, the Greens didn't say it was a mandate for a referendum. Well, the Scottish Greens did okay, but they didn't do great. And they've certainly said in the past they would back the SNP and work with them for an independence referendum completely. And they've said it. So, yeah.
Give us the full Smith Commission, you bunch of fucking bastards. I'm fed up about screaming about this. My throat is going to go fucking raw.
And it's pretty obvious.
Policy.
It's pretty obvious how Plaid Cymru feel, in that what they tried to do to Scotland, they're insisting on doing to Wales. And that didn't go well for them last set of elections. I think it's going to go even worse this time. As Ireland proves, you come in heavy-handed, you rise up. You crack down, you build a rebellion against you. Yeah.
Yeah, on Burnham, he wants to change the don't get me wrong, I've got fucking many issues with the Barnett formula. I don't like it for one reason, because of the consequentials. With certain areas, if something happens down in Westminster, it affects our funding, and it's usually quite bad. Thank you, unionist bastard parties. I hate yous all. I'm never voting for yous ever again. The last time and first time I ever voted, Labour, 97. My MP at the time, Jackie Bailey. So I voted Labour in the constituency I was living in Claybank. And that was it. And when I realised, oh no, they're just all they're bastards now. Brilliant. And I've been saying this for the last last 30 years, essentially. It'll be 30 years next year.
Oh God, horror, kiddies. Yeah, Jackie Bailey's pretty horrible, but I clicked on a BBC News story on YouTube, and it was talking, because I'm going to Warsaw next week. It was talking about like a Soviet invasion of Poland, and I clicked on this, and they're up with the British
Soviet?
Army in Poland. Was Yvette Cooper. Oh my God, it was horrible. I'm actually a bit afraid to travel. If Yvette Cooper's there, I might not be safe.
If you can find that story and post it in the Discord, I'll read it and I'll just get more enraged. It's fun. My chars can see me fucking rant again. Not that I rant.
I can do.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know if I can post a direct link, but I can certainly post a thumbnail.
Thank you.
Yeah, might have to Google it. Yeah. So, Katie, we are coming up to, well, actually, I was going to say 4 hours, but we were about 8-9 minutes late tonight, so we'll call it 4 hours.
Yeah, we're 3 hours 48, so we'll be.
I had a nice little cat nap before we started. It was only about 45 minutes, but it felt like about 2 or 3 hours. I dreamed about people who work for bus companies riding on the outside of the buses. It was a bit unsettling, actually. But I'm gonna I'm gonna say goodnight to Gerbils, and do you know what I do at 2 a.m. tonight? Ring up my Viennetta. Got a nice log of Viennetta downstairs. And I'll have some ice cream.
I've got ice cream in the freezer. I will have some for dessert tomorrow. Or today, essentially.
Chat, what you want to do next? Tell us your hopes and dreams.
Please shelter from the heat if it is still hot where you are.
Yeah.
And don't tempt me, Dan. I will come and rescue you. I will.
Yeah. On the heat, I'm sending all my love. Sincerely. It's quite mental.
It is still currently 19 where you are, my friend. I'm lucky. It went up to 20 for like 20 minutes. And now it's back down to more manageable 16 Celsius. So normal temperatures have resumed, and it is stoating it outside. I can hear the rain. It is quite bad.
Oh, nice.
So what I mean by stoating it is basically fucking hammering it down. It's clearing all the mugginess out of the air. Phew.
Hopefully it really is a new day that's coming. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
It would be.
I think it is, actually. No telling if it'll be tomorrow or next week or next month or longer. But a new day's coming.
Correct. As long as I've got breath in my body, a new day will be coming. Trust me.
And some morning, you are going to wake up and find Donald Trump is dead. That's the thing. Maybe arrested, imprisoned. That's the thing.
I think dead's more likely.
That's the most optimistic thing that's come out of tonight's stream.
I think dead's more likely. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see the man arrested. Obviously, the man's a fucking beautiful.
It's just a fact. That's just what's going to happen.
We don't get out of this life alive, everyone. By the way, sorry to be a little bit doomer there.
You know, tonight's stream has felt like a really hard one, Katie, but I think we did it absolute justice. Yeah, so well done. And thank you everybody who's really said that. I'm a bit late to that party.
You've had thunder for 2 days now, Omaha. Holy fuck.
Shit.
I feel for you. Yeah, it's same with me, Dan. The constant change in atmospheric pressure makes me ill. Welcome to the club. It sucks, doesn't it? Anytime the pressure changes, I feel it in all my bones because broken completely. I would love to find that out, Omaha. Honestly, I'm surprised we haven't had something about Junior or Eric.
Junior's hard drive.
Jared.
Yeah.
But they will be protected because they're in power and they're giving the right-wing fucking nutters the wheel. So you can equate old Bone Spurs Donald to like a puppet. Don't get me wrong, he goes off the script sometimes, or most of the time. We see it every day.
I'm gonna turn in, Katie. Well, no, I'm not actually. I'm gonna go for a walk around and I'm gonna pop into a couple of Burke's Discord server or Turn Left's Discord server, whoever happens to be around.
I'll be going in
Discord server.
I'll be going into Burke's if you want to join me.
Could be.
I will spin up Flavibot and just chill.
And thank you to everybody who's not just stayed with us, who's come and gone, and yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Again, You guys make it really worth it. I love coming in here and having this community around us and supporting what we're doing, even when it is terribly boring like tonight's show. It's just a treat each week, and I look forward to seeing you when I get back from Oxford, if not before.
Cool. I hope you enjoy yourself in Warsaw. Even
oh yes,
she's going to be
Warsaw.
there.
I'm not going to Oxford until August. Yeah, Warsaw. Grand.
Enjoy yourself. I would say have a beer.
But I'll have a few. Yeah, I deserve them. Yeah, well done.
You do.
I promise. And I'll bring you a beer review when I get back.
Thank you. My sister done the same. She's been to Warsaw twice. The same one I played FUD with. She went as part of her job, by the way. Talking to other unions in Poland.
Hey, folks.